Hey, this is Cedric, your host of the Bitcoin Matrix podcast. Prepare yourself for an eye-opening and thought-provoking journey as we delve into the darkest rabbit holes Professor David B Collum has ever gone down. In this captivating 3-hour rip, David Collum and I explore the perplexing question of how individuals can be led to make decisions that ultimately prove self-destructive and antithetical to their own interests and values. This episode is brought to you by River, the financial institution built for all time. With 100% full reserve custody and zero fees on recurring orders, River allows you to buy and mine Bitcoin with ease. Build your Bitcoin mining fleet today with River. Plus, River offers unparalleled service and functionality, including tax optimization, entity accounts, inheritance planning, and instant buy volume. Dollar cost average with zero fees. Smooth out the price volatility of Bitcoin and get zero fees on your Bitcoin purchases when you set up recurring orders. Instantly send and receive Bitcoin. No waiting, no worrying. Transact instantly and globally through the Lightning Network. Mine Bitcoin and get daily Bitcoin payouts. River manages the end-to-end mining process for you, including procuring, hosting, and maintenance. And for larger investments, River's expert team is here to serve you. With River, your Bitcoin is your Bitcoin. Unlike other exchanges, River builds security into every product and service for your peace of mind. For Bitcoiners, River has 100% full reserve custody. All Bitcoin on River are held one-to-one. River does not use or lend your Bitcoin. Your Bitcoin is kept offline in cold storage and requires multiple signatures to identify and authorize a transaction. Buy and build your Bitcoin wealth with a Bitcoin-focused company built for generations. Use the link in the show notes to get $5 in Bitcoin when you sign up and buy Bitcoin at partner.river.com/matrix. And for the ultimate in Bitcoin security and design, get the Cold Card hardware wallet from CoinKite now. With built-in sleep at night technology, it's the only dedicated air-gapped, ultra-secure signing device for Bitcoin. And then check out the Block Clock Mini, the ultimate Bitcoin data display. Track the Bitcoin price, see blocks as they are published by miners, and connect the open dime to display balance, fiat value, and deposit QR codes on a timeless 7E ink digital display. Also, they have this dope as fuck honey badger hat for sale that I'm wearing now. CoinKite is a leader in security and hardware manufacture, established block 141,000, and maker of some of the most iconic Bitcoin products, such as OpenDime, SatsCard, Tab Signer, SatsChip, Cold Card, and Block Clock Micro, all Bitcoin products. What time is it? It's Moscow time. Don't trust, verify. Use the link in the show notes for a discount. If you're a regular listener of the podcast, there's a really easy way to show your support and help us grow. Download the Fountain app, follow the Bitcoin Matrix, and start listening. You can share your thoughts on this episode by sending a boost and see what other listeners have to say, or create clips of the best moments. Getting started is easy. It's a no-brainer. Visit fountain.fm to learn more. Bit Block Boom is not a shitcoin, NFT, or blockchain event. Join us for the 6th year as we talk about Bitcoin, the last weekend in August. Gary Leland, who's been on the show twice for 2 fantastic conversations, has even rented an entire town for the welcome party that Thursday night. Grab your spot now. Use the code MATRIX or the link in the show notes for 10% discount on your tickets at bitblockboom.com. I think he's also looking to get Oliver Anthony and even have a wedding in the church in the town he's renting. It's going to be off the hook. And now, prepare for a roller coaster of topics, from Ospreys and the Nikkei to the pervasive presence and obsolescence of McMansions and antiques. Discover the potential consequences when boomers aim to sell their McMansions while millennials struggle to afford them. Explore the idea of investability in the markets and the leadership problems we face today. Brace yourself for an engaging discussions on Ukraine, human trafficking, school shootings, the impact of Bidenomics, and find out how Dave really feels about what's going on in the world today. But hold on tight as we delve into controversial statements and conspiracy theories. We touch upon the idea of a rigged election and even dark accusations involving cannibalism and the CIA. Throughout this whirlwind conversation, Professor Collum provides insights into topics such as transgender issues, Bill Gates, Corey Feldman, Barbara Walters, Roy Cohn, Ronald Reagan, Bush, Clinton, Damar Hamlin, Will Smith, Chris Rock, Marina Abramovich, Eleanor Rigby, Anne Heche, George Floyd, Hillary Clinton, JFK Jr., Kamala Harris, Carlos Slim, child labor, electric vehicles, and cobalt, shedding light on a hidden aspect of modern society, the influences of figures like Charles Manson, and the shadowy world of MKUltra. With his background in Austrian economics and his vast knowledge of history, he offers a unique perspective that will leave you questioning the world around you. Strap in, open your mind, and prepare to embark on a journey that will challenge your beliefs and expand your understanding of history's lessons in the Great Bamboozle with Professor David B Collum.
What is real? How do you define real?
You can't jump into cash. Cash is trash. What do? You get out.
Dr. David Collum has an MA, MS, and Ph.D. and is the Miller Professor of Organic Chemistry and Department Chair at the Cornell University. Dave is the associate editor of the Journal of Organic Chemistry and a follower of Austrian economics. David received a Doctor of Philosophy from Columbia University in the city of New York. His research interests are chemistry and chemical biology, physical organic chemistry, organolithium chemistry, organosodium chemistry, kinetics, reaction mechanism. Dr. Larry O'Donnell Sucks Collum previously appeared on episode 130 last year for a conversation on the crisis of authority in the age of narratives. I highly recommend you go back and check it out if you haven't already, even listen to it twice. David motherfucking Collum, welcome back to the Bitcoin Matrix. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I'm no longer chair. We got to update my resume. I'm no longer chair, and I'm no longer an editor of a journal. I'm no longer a Pfizer consultant. And so I'm just kind of mothballed. I'm just kind of hanging out and, posting cat memes and shit on Twitter. And my research program, I'm starting to wind down. Everything just kind of pointed to it. It's just one of those things where all of a sudden I said, look, there's too many indicators all saying, wrap it up. I'm 68. My target was to get to 70 funded. I will wrap up my funding at 69. I'm calling that an error bar. So that's good. But now I'm just a nobody.
So are you really wrapping things up and rolling off campus in a year?
No, for two reasons. One is I love being here. So my wife's away. I'm sitting in my office, right? Where else would I want to be? The other thing is I'm going to make Cornell pay a salary or two before I go. I've earned my keep, and there's enough people running around this campus who don't do shit. And I've done a lot of heavy lifting over the years, and so I don't know quite when I'll retire, but my salary's high enough that it's worth hanging on to for a little while longer.
Yeah. Do you think you'll stay in the area?
Yeah. I'm kind of not a Florida guy, one of those snowbirds. I have very little interest. We live on Cuga Lake looking west, hanging off a 100-foot cliff, unbelievable sunsets. It's just an idyllic place to hang out. In the summer, there's no mosquitoes. We stay out there till midnight in our lounge chairs with our laptops and stuff. So there's that. And so I asked my wife recently if where she wanted to die at our house or at some old folks home before we're done. And she said, oh, there's no chance I want to go. There's this place called Kendall where most of my colleagues end up. She said, no, I have no interest in that. So then I got another dog. If we were heading for Kendall, we have way too many dogs already, but I'd have to think twice about getting another. But if we're just going to croak and, fall off the balcony of our deck, then who cares, right?
Yeah, that sounds wonderful and beautiful.
Right.
I don't know how to say, but is it the osprey or the osprey? How's your osprey nest?
Well,
Behind the house?
so I'm going to bitch a little bit here, and then I'll explain to you why the osprey, in some sense. So my wife's a real osprey expert, and I couldn't give a shit about birds, but the ospreys are pretty cool, and I have edited 451 blogs. So she's a real expert. I'm number 2 in this region, expert, just from editing blogs till I'm purple in the face. Well, this summer, well, about a dozen years ago, my wife fell, did a head or broke her neck. That was entertaining. No long-term damage. She's got all sorts of health problems. That, believe it or not, is one of the more minor ones. December 5th, she fell and broke her neck again. I'm going, holy gee, I'm not doing this, right? This is not me. And what was surreal about it is my mother in 99 fell and hit a antique Chippendale desk and broke her neck and died. So you go, Dave, this is getting a little weird here, right? And as I like to say, but don't worry, the desk was fine. And then did all sorts of fuck ups and stuff. It turns out her neurosurgeon didn't know this. About 3 days after she broke her neck in December, she fell again, and I was worried about her skull. I was worried because she definitely rattled her chimes. So I raced home, and she seemed okay, and so we're fine. And then months later, we got a second opinion because our neurosurgeon was giving us stupid sounding advice. And it turns out she broke it again, a different break. So this chick has broken her neck 3 times, twice in 3 fucking days. How do you do that, right? And that same week that we found out she broke her neck, our furnace caught on fire. And, I've got a bladder stone that feels like a porcupine is camped out in my bladder. It's just hurts like hell. All day today, I've been pissing blood. I'm going to get that taken out. So again, they don't hurt like kidney stones, in case no one knows. Kidney stones will double you over and make you pray to God. These just feel like a bladder infection or something. But I put an osprey nest in the lake in front of our house. We had a nest that someone else put up, and we put a camera in it. And she watched him nonstop for years. But she's not as mobile now, and it was a problem. So I said, okay, so let's put an osprey nest right in front of our house. Now, they don't fill right away. Osprey nests, sometimes it takes a while for a bird to spot it and populate it and raise a mate and stuff like that. So it was sitting there dormant for better part of the summer. And then when she was as low could be, our basement had burnt, everything was fucked up. An osprey showed up. So that was good news. And hopefully it'll come back next year. So that'll be fun. And we just, as you probably know, we got another Boston Terrier as of this morning. And I haven't seen it yet because my son picked it up. So I'm heading to Boston to get it tomorrow. And that makes for 3 Boston Terriers and 1 Labrador Retriever. So I figure we're going to stop buying dogs one of these days, but not yet.
We're a dog family. We love we have a black pug with a lucky white paw. We're down in Florida now. Been here for about a year, a little over a year. And
where in Florida?
Sarasota area.
Okay.
And we live on a small pond, and there's about 2,000 birds that come visit the area, 2 different kinds. And we got ospreys everywhere. And right. It's fun watching them nest. And we got some alligators and other things going on in the back. It's a lot of fun. And I'm kind of a birder. I don't go on hunts and trips. But if I'm sitting on the lanai, I like to look to see what I see.
Right.
When I'm driving around, whatever. And we've really gotten into pets lately. So we've added to the dog. So my little girl's a little bit of an animal whisperer. She started catching all the geckos and lizards here, and we bought a terrarium. But now in the last 3 months, we bought, we're up to 3 tanks, and we got turtles and fish and crabs and crayfish and just keep
Right.
adding to everything. And
She'll get bored with those, and then you'll be left with a, what do I do with these
I don't
things?
know. I got a 10 and 6-year-old. We went to the fish store twice today. We go at least once a week.
Okay, so this is serious.
It's getting serious. They dream about having one in a tank in every room of their mansions when they grow up. That's what they talk about. And now they're talking about trying to get a tank that goes from room to room. And but yeah, they're really into it, and it's great. And I had it when I was a kid, so I had tanks and stuff. So it's kind of fun to revisit that. Last time we talked, we really got into 2021 and what was happening, and that was a fun year. So I kind of want to get into 2022 and your latest piece.
Right.
It's really fun to kind of read your work and kind of get into your mind a little bit, into your brain, but also it's awesome to be like, oh, Dave saw that too. Oh, wow. Okay. And then there's a lot of, oh shit, I didn't see this. What is this? What is this? What is that?
Right.
Thing, And so I'd love to get into it, but you mentioned retirement and, one day, something like that. And you wrote in the piece, as I say every year, I will be fine in retirement as long as I do not fuck up. The problem is that inflation now increases the probability of fucking up massively. You can't sit on cash for too long without serious erosion of its value. But more people have died reaching for yield than at the point of a gun. There are treacherous waters ahead. So what do you think of the economy these days?
Well, I'm the most bearish guy on Twitter, and given there's probably 1 billion people there, I would say that's a bold statement. I watch people analyze what's happening, and you're limited by language. So depending on the words you use, there's a tribe in Indonesia or something that has 3 numbers, 1, 2, and many. They're never going to invent calculus, right? So I listen to all the analyses of the markets, and they're all technical analyses. They're money flows, which I get, and they're timing issues, and they're momentum stories and stuff like that. And it's almost impossible to find a good old-fashioned Graham Dodd story, and it's almost impossible to find some guy who's just looking for companies that sell at half book value and things like that, in part because it's impossible to find those companies. But here's the problem. The problem is that by historical metrics, I have, and I look at about 25 of them, I have the markets at about 2-fold overvalued. Now, I think that valuation is, if there's nothing more mean regressing than valuation. Valuation is the price of the market divided by something that the market ought to track. And I've got this elevator pitch, which I'll give you. I don't think I did it last time, where we had tailwinds, and everyone suffers recency bias. My opinion, the recency bias is 4 decades. So that's a sort of a real wide angle lens view. But in 1980-ish, what teed up the markets to have a great run? Well, first and foremost, the boomers entered the workplace. So demographics, which most economists say demographics drives your economy, right? A young demographic usually is a good sign. We're hearing how old Japan is, all these things. So the boomers showed up in the workforce. They brought their wives with them, right? And so there's that. The Soviets were starting to fall apart. They hadn't fallen apart yet, but they were starting to. And so they started selling resources for pennies on the dollar. They needed cash badly. The Chinese came out of the dark ages, basically, and they sold labor for pennies on the dollar. And that's a well-known story. And on top of all that, the PE ratios were at 6. The interest rates were sort of crowding up towards 20, right? And so, the famous story that, dropping yields are bullish, that's correct. The problem is a lot of idiots don't notice that the phrase is dropping yields, not low yields. And they don't distinguish those two. So you'll see idiots, and I'm disparaging. I see people who plot stuff without correcting for inflation, and it's inexcusable. You really should correct for inflation. You should correct for per capita. There's a lot of corrections, right? If the pizza's grown tenfold, but the population's grown tenfold, you haven't grown anything, right? You got a lot of people eating pizza. So it turns out that by 25 metrics, we're at least 2x overvalued. I can put us at 60. I can put us at 150% overvalued if you want. And so if that is the meanest of mean regressing things, then we have a problem. Now here's a statistic that should scare the living snot out of people. And I slip it in every podcast. That is that if you look at the trend in valuations from 1980, this is a 40-year period, it should just wobble around because it's mean regressing, right? So if it's 10x, 10x earnings or 10x GDP or 10x whatever number you want to use, 40 years later, it should be that plus or minus fluctuations. And it turns out that the valuations compounded 3.5% a year for 40 years. Now, I asked the rhetorical question, what happens if the valuations contract 3.5% a year compounded for the next 40? You say, well, that would never happen. Of course it's going to happen. Of course it's going to happen. Because valuations are mean regressing and they go to the mean, they go through the mean, right? Some point. And the answer is that we will see a net 7% swing over 2 40-year periods. One that was 3.5% tailwind, now it's 3.5% headwind. I don't know when this is going to take place, but I do know that once that trend flips, I think the markets will be uninvestable. I just don't. And I was on a George Noble Twitter Spaces, which is very honorific if you actually think about it. And I said the markets would be uninvestable. And he asked me to clarify. And I said, this is a guy who worked with Peter Lynch, right? He was Peter Lynch's understudy. I said, well, take the Nikkei, for example. In 1989, if you own the market, you're toast. You were destroyed if you own the market. But let's pretend you didn't own it. Let's pretend you were some 22-year-old kid and you started averaging in. It took 20 years to break even, averaging down. So George started countering with, well, you could short this and that. And I go, no, you couldn't. Shorts work really well when it's a swan dive. But the Nikkei just kind of marched its way down methodically, started just beating up the investor. It finally plumbed a low after, 15 years. And then it finally slowly climbed out. It's still something like 30% below its all-time high, 33 years later. I mean, this is a wretched. What if the markets do that? Well, why would they do that? Well, for starters, the boomers are now not going to be saving anymore. They're going to be spending. They're going to be liquidating. I worry about even stupid little things like the McMansions. There's McMansions everywhere, right? And you say, well, that's one of those, the cost of housing. One of the reasons the cost of housing is up so much over the years is because the houses have doubled in size. But what happens when the boomers go to sell their McMansions and the millennials don't have the money to buy them? What do you do with those houses? They're spread all over the countryside. They can't be converted to gas stations or anything. They can't be converted to funeral parlors like they did with the late 19th century mansions. And even worse than that, what happens if the socially aware millennials say, I don't want a big house? Now, where do you see something like that? Well, I can see that sort of trend change I collect American antiques. And I was collecting them when the boomers were building their households. So it was a bull market in American furniture. So you wanted to go buy some 18th century Philadelphia case piece, you paid a lot of money. The millennials don't want those anymore. And that market is slowly but surely rotting away. And you have trouble finding antique dealers who are still alive. Madison Ave used to be filled with them, and now there's almost none. And so what happens when the boomers say, I don't need 4,000 square feet for my 3.8 person family? They're heading towards the give me 1,000 square feet with fold out beds and really cool ideas, right? The super economically sound, feel good about the environment kind of house. And the McMansions, which by the way are made like shit out of Chinese sheetrock and whatever, are going to rot. And the boomers are going to be trying to get rid of these things. And so I think there's some big trend changes coming. So right when the boomers need the money, I think they're not going to be able to get it. And so the boomers now are feeling pretty good about their retirement again, because it's been 12 years of insanity. I think that's the perfect setup for the boomers getting disappointed. This idea that, well, but the markets can't go down, everyone will get hurt. I go, that's exactly when they go down. It's exactly when they go down, right? The more the market needs the gain, the more likely are to not get that gain. And so I have a funny feeling that we've entered the bear market. And if it goes up to an all-time new high, I'm not convinced that means we've exited it at all. And if the markets drop conservatively, in my opinion, 50%, and disastrously 80%, I have, for example, fair value in the S&P in the high teens. I have serious drop down, I believe this, 1,000. And that's based on watching 150 years of markets and reading guys like Ed McQuarrie and stuff talking about how markets work. And everyone thinks the last 40 years is a big enough sample size to say that's how markets work. And I would say the last 40 years has lulled investors to sleep in a profound way. And then you get, Michael Green, who I respect deeply. I think he's very smart. And he explains the rise as the money flows due to indexing and the automatic money that's just this relentless pounding money into the system. And that explains how they've gotten to ridiculous valuations. And the other thing that explains it is with stupidly low rates, people should read Edward Chancellor's The Price of Time if they haven't read it. He says that never in the history of markets have interest rates got down to 2% and that created a disaster. Well, we got negative, right? Europe went negative. The US basically went to zero. And so if Chancellor, one of the great market historians, is correct, or Stan Druckenmiller, probably the most successful guy, even this side of Buffett, Stan is petrified as to what he sees because he started shouting about it 10 years ago and saw no response for 10 years. And so I think we're in trouble. And then you look at the leadership and you go, holy moly, right? I mean, right now, the guy at the helm, close your ears if you're a Biden fan. We got a guy who's 80 years old. He's demented. Good evidence says he molested his daughter. He sniffs the hair of little girls. And so I got to figure some of those girls somehow got touched along the way, too. He is a compulsive liar. He seems dumber than a brick to me. And he's a grifter of a higher order. That's not only who's running the country, but that's who the Democrats are putting up again. If I were a Democrat, I'd be going, maybe we should find someone better and let's skip by Harris because she's a nitwit. I was talking to a very famous money manager. He says he matter. He said, there's stupid and there's Harris. That's how he phrased it. He said, there's stupid and there's Harris. And so we've got a leadership problem. I just read Biden wants to make basically it impossible to buy a gas-powered generator. 95% of the generators are going to become unacceptable by Bidenomics. We've got a grid that's creaking under its own weight, right? They're going to make everyone get an electric car with a grid that's antiquated. I just, everything seems wrong. I'll tell you what I've been laboring over. I'm going to take you at risk of taking you down the darkest goddamn hole I've ever gone down. How do you get people to make decisions that seem so self-destructive and so antithetical to the basic principles of the country? And you keep saying, and it closely dovetails with that question of when you say they, right? Everyone at one time or another is referred to they. And the they is a conspiracy theory. And I am the most diehard conspiracy theorist of them all. I have worn the label as a badge of honor for many years. I call out people who use it pejoratively as just assholes. I had a tweet that went totally viral and still keeps popping up where I said, look, I'm a conspiracy theorist. I believe that men and women of wealth and power conspire. And I said, if you don't, you're what's called an idiot. And if you do and you're not willing to say anything, you're what's called a coward. So when someone says to me, well, anything about conspiracy theory, pejoratively, I stop them dead in their tracks. I will not let them get by that one. And I will say, you don't believe in conspiracies? I'm not talking about 9-foot zombies roaming the earth here. I'm talking about people conspiring to do very bad things. And so I look at what's going on in the world and I go, how could all these people throw us under the bus so comfortably? So I'm a big believer the elections were rigged, profoundly, right? People say, they went to court 61 times. No, they got into a courtroom 61 times, never got adjudicated. Not a single case got adjudicated. So I stand by my belief that it got rigged profoundly. And it's not only that, but it's been rigged for years. But this time it got rigged because of Trump. And so it wasn't just, playing capture the flag around the edges. This was a serious rig. And I think the evidence is actually pretty good, but I don't need evidence. What I need is to ask you the rhetorical question, given everything that they did to keep Trump out of office. They're arresting him about once a week. They've indicted him. They've impeached him twice. They did everything imaginable. Disgusting performance by the Democrats. Disgusting performance. I don't care how disgusting Trump is. At some point, you got to live with what the world and put into office. And if you're going to apply an even set of rules for those guys, you can arrest every single person in Congress. You can arrest every single person in the Senate. You could put Biden in prison for life. You could hang him from the neck until dead for treasonous level crimes. And they're putting Trump, trying to do something to him for taking papers out of the White House that every president does. And the latest, remind me what the latest one was. It's so preposterous to me.
I've given up on following.
Right. But show me a country where they're arresting one of the front runners in a presidential campaign, and I'll show you a banana republic. And you can say, well, but if he did it, he deserves. I go, by that standard, let's just start lining them up and shooting them. Just line them all up and put them against the wall and shoot them. And let's have the Cultural Revolution 2.0, right? Because they deserve it by your model, right? They deserve it by this model that if they did something bad, we should shoot them. They're all doing bad stuff. And so that frustrates me. And then I look at the Republicans and they didn't fight the rigged election. So the support for the Congress is at something like 26%. The reelection rate is something like 97%. How do those two numbers go together? And what I do know is that the 97% who got reelected, they don't want to question the election. They just got reelected. right? They don't want to come out and say, look, the election's rigged. I didn't deserve to get a voted either. They're just not going to do it. The Republicans have done nothing. Let's go worse. McCarthy, who I think is actually an Illuminati. I'm going to go that far. I'm so deep, I'm fucked up. I'm hopelessly deep. He has 41,000 hours of videotapes. He gave them to Tucker Carlson. I don't know why Tucker hasn't given them up. Maybe Fox has them. We know why Fox won't give them up, because they're crooked as shit as anybody. But McCarthy has 41,000 hours of tape. We've got people in solitary after, was it almost 3 years, who haven't come to trial yet. I find the people who are doing that, put them against the wall and shoot them. I'm just so fucking mad at this point. Find the people who are causing that to happen. And then they leak out. So Tucker leaks out Chansley's tapes. Chansley gets sent to prison for 4 years, 20 seconds of Chansley's tape, and they let him out of jail. Well, there's a bunch of guys sitting in prison and sitting in jail who would like those tapes to be released. Where are they? So McCarthy is a complete sack of total shit if he doesn't release those tapes. A human garbage. You're catching me on a bad day. Probably that porcupine camped in my bladder that hurts like a son of a bitch.
I'm loving it.
Well, I say shit that could get me in trouble, right? I mean, this I don't care. I'm 68 years old. You know what? If someone at Cornell wants to make holy hell, we're going to war. I got canceled in 2020. It was not fun. This time it's going to be fun. I'm taking a machete to those bastards this time. I'm just going to raise holy fucking hell. So they better lay off me, or I'm going at them. And Cornell Cornell was fine. I don't have a complaint with Cornell, but they try to throw me under the bus. I'm going to tip the bus over. And so I don't care. Come at me. I support Matt Walsh. Come at me. I don't care. Injecting sterilizing drugs into kids is a bad fucking idea. Come at me. Tell me how that's rational. There's another horror story. How many fucking parents are going to wake up 10 years from now with kids who are sterilized and who say, Mom, Dad, how did you let me sterilize myself? Where the fuck were my parents when I needed them? What the fuck did you do to me, Mom? Where were you when I'm sitting there trying to decide whether to be a cowboy or a princess, and you let me get injected with shit that ruined my fucking life? So the parents who let that happen, you're fucking stupid. I'm just, oh man, I gotta calm the fuck down. So what's got me wired is I was working on this thing, and then along comes Jim Casaviel, or however you pronounce his name. And I have several theories. Theory number one: everyone's got to be corrupted. You control the system by controlling the people. You control the system you control the message by controlling the messenger. Hollywood is hopelessly fucked up from head to toe. Every one of those guys in Hollywood's cannibalizing babies, best I can tell. It's hopelessly fucked up. You don't corrupt people in power. What you do is you corrupt them, and then you give them power. You don't let someone get power until you own them. And in Hollywood, I think it's really acute. I think they literally put some guy and say, you're getting a blowjob from a 5-year-old, or your career's going nowhere. I think it's that bleak. I think Hollywood is corrupted. I read a book called Chaos. It was about Charles Manson being CIA tied. And it sounds spooky. It's a compelling book. Very smart people told me to read it. But what's lingering in the background of the book that I think the author failed to explain, and I asked him, and he said, oh, it's in the book. And I go, I don't think so. When he was studying Manson, trying to understand why Manson's connection to the CIA, he started out just writing a puff piece. Hollywood slammed the door in his face repeatedly. He'd talk to people who were there during the Bianca Tate murders and stuff. And they wouldn't just say, that's a dark time. I don't want to go there. They'd slam the door in his face. And it was clear they all know something. So then you get Corey Feldman and Elijah Wood denouncing Hollywood and saying pedophilia is rampant in Hollywood. I don't think this is just casting couch crap. I think there's something more fundamental here. So Elijah Wood recants. Corey Feldman hangs tough. He's on The View one day. Why they put him on there, I don't know. And he says this. And that was back when Barbara Walters was on The View. Oh, Barbara Walters, right? What an elite journalist. Well, she's a whore too, it turns out. What would you say if you were Barbara Walters when Corey Feldman denounces Hollywood for being rampant pedophilia? Well, you'd say something like, oh, that's really horrible. Let's go to commercial, right? You'd somehow get the hell out of there. No, that's not what she did. She shreds them. She shreds them. Just like Rolling Stone shredding The Sound of Freedom. Just like that, right? And so I'm going, why did Barbara Walters just do that? She just got told of a fundamental problem and she shredded the messenger. So I'm tooling along and I'm reading a book, must have been 3 months ago. Can't even remember which book. And I find out that Barbara Walters was said to be tight as tight could be with Roy Cohn. Now, Roy Cohn trained Epstein. He trained all the blackmailers. Roy Cohn was one of, but see, that's right. Here's the problem. At that level in the atmosphere, everyone's associated with everyone. And so guilt by association is a dangerous thing too. Because if you're going to be way up there, you're going to know a lot of crazy ass people. Roy Cohn, however, created Reagan from scratch. He took charge of Reagan's career before Reagan got elected to the Screen Guild presidency. That's how far back Cohn goes. Cohn was one of the great blackmailers. He had dirt on everyone and he beat them senseless with it. And Barbara Walters was said to be unimaginably tight with Roy Cohn. Cohn was the guy who was right sitting next to McCarthy in the McCarthy hearings. He was in Reagan's inner circle. Those who love Reagan might have been a real nice looking guy, but you know, you got to wonder what the hell was going on inside that Reagan inner circle. And so the second theory I'm working on, and then all of a sudden out comes The Sound of Freedom, is I'm working on this theory that you can't control everyone. You can't get everyone to sign off unless you have, I don't think you have to have everyone corrupted. I think you have to have enough corrupted such that an honest guy who tries to do something will be grabbed by the scruff of the neck by some dishonest guy, dragged into a closet and said, if you don't shut your mouth, you're going to die. I'm warning you. This is a bad direction to go. So I'm digging into this stuff, and you find, we watch Sound of Freedom, and I tweeted my ass off about how Rolling Stone was hammering it. The whole thing, it was bizarre. It was Rolling Stone, it was CNN, and it was just a feel-good movie about a guy saving child traffickers. But you're going, 85,000 kids disappeared coming over the border, the southern border. Now, who is the one most helping keep that southern border wide open? And that's the perv of pervs, Joe Biden. Now, it turns out crises are a great opportunity. Crisis, hurricane in Haiti, earthquake in Turkey. What do? Well, first you save the kids. You put them on buses. Where do those kids go? They get taken to places you don't want to know. 2 million kids a year said to disappear. This isn't even debated. This is not even the authorities. There's the National Missing Children, whatever organization. I've got notes on all this shit. There's the International Missing Children Organization. And then you look at who's on the board of directors and who's running them, and you go, these are just Clinton Foundation 2.0 organizations. These are money laundering organizations. And then you ask the question, when was the last time somebody powerful, rich and powerful, which, by the way, they're not selling children into trailer parks. These kids are way too expensive. They're selling them to people of wealth and power. 2 million kids. Now, Some of them are missing because they went to the drug world. Some of them are missing because they're mining cobalt in Africa, right? So that the fucking clueless yuppies can all feel good about their electric car. So yeah, that green car of yours, well, they use slave children labor to get the cobalt to make the battery. So you just pat yourself on the back until you pull a muscle, but otherwise you're full of shit. So, but some percentage of them are in the sex trade. So Sound of Freedom looks like this amazing story. And in the very least, it's one of these, oh, it's just great to see some guy achieve something. My wife came out of it, was bothered by one part of it. And she said, so this guy goes down, Ballard. And I don't know if Ballard's the real deal or not, but I'm going to point out, I'm on a doctor Zoom group, and I said I was digging into this shit now. And all of a sudden, the docs started dropping links. These are the docs. This is a Zoom group that was created during COVID. And every major anti-vaxxer, anti-COVID, anti-Fauci guy has been through this Dr. Zoom group. Scott Atlas, Bobby Kennedy, you name it. McCullough, all these guys have been through this Zoom group. And the guys who are left in it now start dropping links, and I'm getting buried in these links. And all of a sudden, some of the links I'm hitting are people saying the Sound of Freedom's bullshit. It's like, okay, I got to follow up on that. What the hell's the problem there? Mm-hmm. And it turns out it kind of hits something. My wife came out of there. Ballard goes down there, saves 54 kids. But they present the pervs as just your stereotypical perv. Some guy who seems all slimy and oily, who buys a kid and smuggles him over the border and just wants to bang him in the basement, right? But that's not the story. So the movie avoided the real story completely. So the question is why? And one answer, which I could totally understand, is you'll never get the movie out there if you start attacking the elite. You first got to get the trafficking story out, right? So there's nothing in the movie that attacked the elites at all. At all. Even the guy's boss who tried to stop him from doing it finally says, okay, I'll tell you what, we'll do this and that'll allow you to do it. And so everyone's a good guy. But my wife was troubled by the fact that he went after one last girl in the movie. And this is supposedly true. And he went deeply into the rebel-controlled territory of Colombia. This is supposedly true. So he took like a 1 in 10 Hail Mary of coming out alive. It was did you see the movie by chance?
No, but I do have one thing to add to it that what you're saying, but I'll wait.
Well, I'll just finish right here on the movie, and that is that he left a family of 7 kids at home to go save a girl, in which the odds of him coming back were almost 0. And the wife says, "Oh, you have to go," and I'm going, "No." My wife said, "No, that's not responsible. You got a family. Biology says that's bullshit." And then you wonder. So then you start going out on the internet, you start reading about the movie, and they start showing who funded it. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden you go, oh, Carlos Slim. Oh, all these goddamn guys who are way too connected. And then you start finding people who are supposedly good guys who are on the board of directors of these international missing children organizations. Can you name a single famous person who actually got caught? I can name one. Dennis Hastert. He spent something like 18 months in jail. He must have pissed off somebody. But I think it's everywhere. And Epstein's client list is nowhere in sight. But here's the other problem. There are Epsteins everywhere. He might have been one of the more glamorous ones, but they're everywhere. So then I got into the Franklin scandal. Franklin scandal is a story about a pedophilia ring run out of Boys Town, the famous Boys Town that Mickey Rooney made a movie. Mickey Rooney made a movie about. This where father so and so is taking care of the boys and straightening them out. And there's a guy named Larry King, not the one who's on TV, who's a total perv and trafficking kids all over the place. And it turns out that an investigator dug into it. The story started coming out, and this ex-state cop dug into it, and he got all sorts of corroborative evidence that said not only were they doing shit to him, but it got so dark, it ended up they were flying kids around the country. So this was a small-looking trafficking operation out of Omaha. So why does that matter? Well, the reason it matters is because when someone got the trail, got the scent, the boom came down from the highest levels of power. It got hammered from the highest levels of power. The FBI trashed the shit out of all the witnesses. See, the problem is the witnesses are a bunch of broken people. These are guys who got it up the ass when they were 5 years old. These are guys who became crackheads and stuff. These are guys who did time. These are guys who are still prostitutes. And so they're broken people. But they very meticulously corroborated their stories, and they'd say, oh, so-and-so was there, and they'd go check out the guy. I'm not even quite done with the book yet. And then what happened is first they went to the cops, and that didn't work because the chief of police was sticking it up the kids' asses. And then they went to the attorney general of Nebraska, and he stepped all over it. And then they went to the FBI, and they crushed the witnesses. They crushed them. And they not only crushed them, but they got them to recant their testimony in sort of blatant ways. They really said, look, we're going to destroy you unless you pull back on this. And the record seems pretty good. So then what happens is they're done crushing him and getting him to recant. What do? They charge him with perjury. What a funny finish that is. So at the point I'm at in the book now, he has left Omaha. The investigative journalist type guys left Omaha. Oh, by the way, the guy who did the great detective work, the state cop, his plane blew up, so he's not with us anymore. It was back around 1990. And so this investigative guy wrote the book, and I was talking to someone on Twitter who I really respect, and he had read the book too, which shocked me. I didn't know he was paying attention to this shit. And this guy's now tracking people in New York City. This guy's now reached out across the network to find out what's going on. And that's the world we're in now, I think. I think this is a real world. And the problem is I can't win. I'm either right, which means it's just total darkness, which is sort of why I'm irritated tonight, besides that fucking bladderstone. Or I'm wrong, and I've been duped beyond comprehension, right? But I don't think I'm wrong. And the Manson story is an amazing story. So the Manson story, which I was doing a podcast with Jimmy Iorio and Bob Iacchino, and they brought it up, and they said they had both read it. And I'm going, holy shit, I thought that was just for wackos. Of course, then I thought maybe they're wackos. And Manson turns out to connect up with the MKUltra story. Now, I thought the MKUltra story was real, but probably way overplayed. That's where the CIA tried to brainwash people with all sorts of psychedelics. So the book Chaos about Manson connects Manson up with a guy named Jolly West. That was the smoking gun. Jolly West turns out to be absolutely at the center of the MKUltra program. What I also didn't know was that the MKUltra program was hugely important and very secret. And it blew up in the early 70s. It was above the fold scandal. And the CIA said it didn't work, and we wrapped up the program. What if they're lying? What if it did work, and they haven't wrapped up the program? So you find the first thing I heard about MKUltra was that Ted Kaczynski was a damaged good that came out of it, right? So you go, well, that they sure broke that guy. And I'm going, and then I start thinking about it, I'm going, what if they didn't? What if he is the laboratory experiment? What if he's doing exactly what they wanted him to do? And then you find out that Manson was tied to Jolly West. And then he dug into Jolly West further, and he traces him back to Boston, where a lot of bad shit happens. The entire Harvard psych department was a bunch of sick fucks doing weird shit. Skinner and these guys were horribly connected with the CIA. And so and then he connects Jolly West up. He says, it turns out Jolly West connects up with Timothy McVeigh. You go, what? And Timothy McVeigh was one of these classic stories where there's rumors of a bunch of guys, and then all of a sudden it's kind of boiled down to just one major guy. Timothy McVeigh was filmed, and I saw the footage at this top secret PSYOP operation. Timothy McVeigh was not just some grunt. He was an important guy. And they killed him fast, didn't they? They didn't wait long to put him under the ground or something else. And Jolly West was right in the middle of that. And then the guy gets a lead and he says, this is a lead I did not want. I had to follow it. And it turned out to be true. And he said, Jolly West inserted him into the Jack Ruby trial. I go, holy shit, that just got real. And it turns out that he explores in detail what happened with Ruby. Ruby shoots Oswald. And as the story goes, Ruby didn't know he'd killed Oswald. He was confused when they arrested him. He was, and then the judge had him evaluated. Who got to him at some point? Jolly West. And Ruby turns out the same as Jack Rubenstein. And that's relevant to the extent that what it says is, okay, his connection to organized crime is real, but it's the wrong crime syndicate, right? His name is Jack Rubenstein. It's the Jewish mob, not the Italian mob, right? And that takes you back through Epstein to Meyer Lansky and that whole story that Whitney Webb talks about all the time. What also rattled my cage is one time I saw Whitney Webb burst into tears talking about this shit. I go, holy shit, that bitch is tough. And she just burst into tears. And so I've been chasing that shit. And I have this awful feeling that right in front of our nose is, and then the Franklin scandal is it sort of left Omaha. He was getting witnesses saying, look, I watch guys having sex with 5-year-olds and choking them to death right there on the spot. And then you start making connections with spirit cooking. Now, spirit cooking's real. It's unambiguously real. It's where this chick named not Lisa, I'll hit the Wall Street woman by mistake. Abramowitz or something.
Marina Abramovich.
Yes.
She made videos with Jay-Z and
right.
She's with all the celebrities, yeah. And she never ages until she does.
And she makes these meals that look like carcasses and babies being cooked and stuff. And then the question I ultimately end up at is, behind the scenes, is she actually cooking babies, right? Is she actually doing this shit? And I just don't know. But there's Hollywood A-listers pretending to eat a carcass.
Like Lady Gaga and...
And Chris Rock. And there's just so many.
It was very close with all the living presidents, Lady Gaga.
Right. And Lady Gaga kind of said, look, I was going nowhere until I started doing this. Then Marina sort of cleansed my system. And it's a real satanic shit. And then you roll back to Alex Jones. He cut his teeth on Bohemian Grove, and he takes a camera in there, and it's all the satanic shit with senators and congressmen in the audience. And you go, oh, that's got to be bullshit. And then at one point, you seen the footage of him with David Gergen?
No.
So he jams a microphone when he was young. This is Alex when he was a young punk, under David Gergen's face, and asked him about Bohemian Grove. And Gergen could not have handled it worse. Gergen, instead of saying, what are you talking about? Just being stupid. He says, it's none of your business. He says, that's what people do in their own privacy, is none of your business. Why are you asking this? And I'm going, holy shit, you're confessing. And he won't let it go. And Alex is going at him, and Gergen is, through his denials, is going, holy shit, I can't believe what you're meant. And when Jones is done, he turns to the camera and he goes, yeah, like that, because he knew he nailed him. So Gergen's response said, this is bad shit. It's real. And then there's just the weird shit. January 6th, you know, the Dominion lawsuit that got Tucker kicked out.
Mm-hmm.
You know how crooked the Dominion lawsuit was. Here's the Dominion. No one's noticed this. I can't find anyone who's noticed this. They will now if they watch your podcast. I was bothered when Diebold controlled the elections years ago,
Mm-hmm.
Bush.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going, wait a minute, the CEO of Diebold is a Bush fundraiser. If you're controlling the voting machines, you probably pretty much should stay out of the game, in my opinion. And then somehow I wake up and all of a sudden there's Dominion. I go, what the hell is Dominion doing? Well, it turns out Dominion's Canadian. I go, at the time I'm thinking, well, I guess I trust the Canadians more than us. Oh, since the truckers, it's not so clear. And Chrystia Freeland and all that stuff. So it's clear that Canada's full of complete fuckwits. And then you find out Dominion's owned by UBS, a subsidiary of UBS. And it's the subsidiary of UBS is the dominant owner of that subsidiary as a company in Beijing. So our voting machines are owned by Beijing. That was true in the 2020 election. Now, I forgot to ask the rhetorical question. Why was the election rigged? Because they did everything imaginable. And someone with a straight face is going to say to me, but they didn't think of rigging the election. You got to be an idiot to make that claim. Yeah, I mean, you really have to have an IQ of around 40 to think that they would do all those things that they did, but forgot to rig the election, or even crazier, viewed the election as some sacrosanct, whatever, something you just don't touch. Oh my God, is that a laughable thing? And so, in any event, so Dominion sues Fox. And Fox settles inexplicably for $700 million. Turns out that in any other period in history that I can think of, that thing would have ended up in the Supreme Court. This major news organization would have been saying, this is freedom of the press, you can't do this, and then never would have gone anywhere. But they settled. So I had this interesting guy. So, well, you know, 700 million, that ought to help Dominion's earnings this year. Let's go see what it did to their share price. I go, and it turns out that Dominion went private in 2018. I go, boy, that's a convenient timing for a company to go from in the public view to private, right before the 2020 election. And then I start finding paperwork online with some smudges that prevent you from seeing some stuff that shows that their annual revenues are about $18 million. So the damage settlement against Fox was 45 times revenues of Dominion. You could buy Dominion 10 times with the damage settlement for Dominion. So here's what I think happened. Fox needed Tucker out because Fox is part of the deep state. Dominion's part of the deep state. Everyone's part of the deep state. They needed a headline so they could have an excuse. So Dominion said, okay, I'll tell you what, we'll sue you. You guys settle. And then you get to claim that you just couldn't afford Tucker anymore. And they needed a big, big defeat. I'm guessing no money changes hands. None. And so that's the world we're in. Now, the question becomes, has it always been this way? If it's always been this way, then you say, well, you know, it's not like Caligula was a great leader, right? It's not like Mao was great. It's not, you just keep going back. And, you know, it's always been there. It's Skanky Orr's running the operation. But I kind of was hoping that somewhere down deep, we were kind of the good guys. I think we play rougher than anyone else realized. I realized. I mean, it's taken years for me to realize that I'm antagonistic about the Ukraine war to the point that I've said in public, many podcasts, we should be sending weapons to Putin. We're sending them to the wrong guys. I believe that. When you read part 2 of my year in review, it's 100+ pages on why the goddamn war is all wrong. But this pedophile thing has gotten under my skin. And if that's how they're controlling people, which is how Epstein did, and Epstein didn't just traffic in 16-year-olds. 16-year-olds underage, but we all know 16-year-olds can actually be 16 going on 25 pretty fast. That's not the same as a 5-year-old, right? And I saw pictures of what happens to sub 5-year-olds physically to them when they get hit with anal sex. Their eyes get all bloodshot and everything. It's a very strange phenomenon. I don't even know if it's real. This is the problem. I don't know if any of it's real. I don't know. There's a woman named Liz Crocken who's been fighting this fight. I go, she's fighting the good fight. And someone recently said to me, a guy who wrote a big fat book that's over on the floor, sent it to me months ago, and I didn't read it, but I came back in touch with him. He says she's the real deal. But then you find she's on the board of, the International Missing Children thing, and very strange stuff. You start digging in, and you find that guys like Jeff Koons, the guy who sells the balloon art for $250 million for a balloon. That's like Hunter Biden's art times a bazillion, right? Well, turns out modern art is a great way to launder money, because you buy art from someone for $250 million, they get $250 million, clean as a whistle, laundered money. And no one mandated that Hunter tell us where he got his payments from, like Sam Bankman-Fried. There's all sorts of crap like this going on. And then you start digging into Jeff Koons. He's up to his ass and everything. And you go, his balloon art, he's just laundering money. So that is what has crawled up my ass.
Well, I'm seeing a lot of the same things you are. There's a lot going on, but this stuff is kind of coming across our desks, and it's hard. Once you see it, it's hard to unsee. That's what I'm kind of noticing. Just to kind of add a little bit to it, I mean, Tucker Carlson applied to be in the CIA when he was young.
Right.
I think that's interesting to know, and that kind of fits in with a lot of what you said.
Well, so the question is would you bet a substantial sum of money that Tucker is one of the good guys?
No, I don't think I don't think there's white hats that are at that level.
And Whitney Webb says, for example, if you think you're going to elect a solution, you're dreaming.
I agree to a large extent. I think it's sort of, though. I think politics is kind of human and built into life. Right. And I'm not talking about federal and national politics per se, but just the nature of politics, and compromise, negotiation, dominance, power, submission, all these things. But you mentioned like MKUltra and conspiracy theories and sort of defending that. And it made me think a lot about Operation Paperclip, and just sort of where I think that's where a lot of this Marxism is coming, and this victim mentality is coming from this Marxism. And Roy Cohn, it's fascinating because
he's as bad can be, right? I mean,
there's
just nothing about him that's anything but evil.
Right. I'm looking him up. I mean, I think he was very close. I think he was the lawyer for the 5 families, if not just maybe the Genovese family. Or
yes. So here's the problem with the CIA. One of the things that comes through real clear: the CIA, before it existed, they were using organized crime, whether it's Meyer Lansky or the Giancana or whatever.
Mob, which I think owned the Italian mob. And I wouldn't be surprised. When I got into Roy Cohn, it was really through the Donald Trump lens of the 2016 election, and I was trying to figure out what was going on with. But have you found a connection with Trump and Cohn that's a smoking gun? I don't know if what I've read is true.
Well, what's the claim?
But the claim is Trump's family came here from Germany when his grandfather was dirt poor, and all of a sudden ends up in Vancouver and British Columbia running brothels and alcohol, and gets really big doing that. And you can't do that without the mob.
That's like
you.
like an Epstein thing. That's like an Epstein
yeah,
thing.
And the mob, Meyer Lansky, he like the origin story that I've heard is he was one of these runners for alcohol, and then he kind of bought up all the runners. But I mean, that's really where like NASCAR came from, outrunning the cops and running alcohol and running across the border. And that's where the Kennedys came out of. I mean, they were getting liquor from Canada, from the Bronfmans probably.
Right,
the Jewish mob. Right, I've met Charles Bronfman, and then I read up on him.
Have you seen the picture of all these famous power brokers? I mean, with Fauci in the picture.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Steinhardt's a very interesting character, a hedge fund legend.
Absolutely. Yeah, you know founder of hedge fundery, right?
You know his origin story?
No, I don't.
Okay, his dad was the famous, not the right, the largest fencer of jewelry for the mob in the country. And his dad got sent to prison, and Michael would go visit him. His dad would just hand him stacks of cash. That's the original.
So he was running it out of the prison.
Running out of the prison and throwing it into stocks. And then, this is off the, anecdotally, but, I've heard Michael talk about this, and I've heard other people talk about this, but like I met Michael. But, he you call up the research analyst and like, are you fucking kidding me? You downgraded Apple? Fuck you. Next time you do this, I'm going to fucking kill you. And you can move the market. You can, I mean, literally, I think the mob took over corporate America, took over Wall Street, took over
I
stocks.
once had a taxi cab driver. One time I asked about the mob. I was in Vegas. He says the mob's not in Vegas anymore. They've moved to Wall Street. And he was dead serious.
Yeah, Vegas was a little.
That's where the money is.
Yeah, Meyer Lansky said it. We're bigger than U.S. Steel. Which brings in the Kennedys for me. So I mean, back to the Kennedys.
Bobby Jr. Right.
And you brought up the Illuminati. I mean, is JFK in on this too? I mean, you brought up Ruby, you brought up Roy Cohn's connected to him. They're all connected. Some of them get blown out maybe in the back of the head, like a Timothy McVeigh, or not. We don't know. Or Ted Kaczynski. We don't know what happened to them or Epstein, whether they actually died with a bullet in the back of the head because they were no longer useful, or they really died. And you look at Epstein and Ghislaine, I mean, I'm sure you know about Robert Maxwell.
Oh, yeah.
Which was the Ted Murdoch of
I grabbed a picture from
the Rupert Murdoch of Europe.
Rudy, that shows a picture of the Queen of England sitting in a cabin. And then an independent picture sitting in the same seats in the same cabin, Ghislaine Maxwell and Kevin Spacey.
Oh, yeah. I think Ghislaine managed Epstein. I think she was higher than him. Hence why she's.
I think that's
alive.
right. I think that's right. In fact,
and I think they needed
that's
to
because
move.
the Mossad was higher than him.
Yeah, and I think they needed to move the Robert Maxwell money that disappeared in the billion that he heisted from the pension funds.
Well, by the way, Maxwell's operation owned Pergamon, which owns all the biomedical journals, which lied their asses to us for the last 3 years.
Right. And Ghislaine's sister is still, I think, very involved in politics and WEF and vaccines and medicine and not-for-profits and children.
Ghislaine will be out of there. She's not going to spend 20 years in prison.
Right. And I think that, like SBF kind of represents the move of money from Robert Maxwell to Epstein to what I think they were trying to do with SBF, just in the modern era of, give him an origin story. He has a lot of money. He's in philanthropy. And
get him on Fortune magazine.
Right.
Get him
and
on.
He could move the needle in medicine.
The things he funded were all deep state bullshit things.
That's what I mean. They wanted him to move the needle and all these things, and be an Epstein or even a Michael Milken, who gets rehabilitated and can kind of speak to all these causes.
I saw Jack Abramowitz. Jack, who is the
Abramovich?
Abramovich.
Was that the guy who got
Abramoviches?
Was that the guy who got pardoned?
Well, so Clinton. So remember when Clinton pardoned Mark Rich, who was
that was a good one.
Mossad. He was Mossad, and the Republicans chased him around and made hay out of that. The thing that never happens is they never draw blood. They're getting real close to it with things like impeachments and stuff, but they never seem to actually draw blood. So it's like dogs fighting in the yard. You see teeth, you're growling, and then they lick their balls and go to sleep.
I saw this with Roger Stone. It's sort of the art.
Oh, he's an evil fuck too.
It's sort of the art of the cover up. And so what I'm getting at here is they don't care how in your face all this stuff is. They just have
that's part of it. I think
it's
that's part of it.
It's part of it. And so they just have to manage the cover up, which is managing the courts, right? Whether it's buying the judges, owning the judges, getting what they want in court. And what I also think is all these fights, not all, I shouldn't say all, but a lot of these fights are fake. So it's money laundering, it's money changing hands, it's power games. But it's just because two people are fighting over $250 million of art in court doesn't mean they're real enemies. Right. And that's a show.
No, it's kabuki theater. Yeah.
Right.
It's like, remember that guy? I don't know if you know him. He had long blonde hair and he was the regulator that was supposed to be overseeing the trading in the precious metals. I can never remember his name. In any event, he was, we're going to get the bad guys. We're going to get the all that goddamn juking they do with the market. And then he retired and he never got anything. And they're just there for show. There's, I think it's Jordan Peterson says, if you have social animals and they play together, there's always a dominant one. If the dominant one doesn't let the non-dominant one win occasionally, they'll stop playing. And so Tucker is potentially our win, right? Liz Crocken could be our win. These people who appear to be fighting a good fight could be our win. It's like Prigozhin in Russia, right? I reached out to a U.S. intelligence guy who's retired. I'm not sure there's such a thing, but he says he is. And I said, is Prigozhin really going against Putin? Because I don't believe it. And he said, no, there's not a snowball chance in hell Prigozhin's going against Putin. He said he'd die. Doesn't work that way, right? So what were they doing? Well, they were pretending to fight. And actually, McGregor, a podcast this morning, he said, I'm not even sure there was any insurrection of any kind with Prigozhin. What did happen is Prigozhin, by appearing to be heading to Moscow, was able to move his troops within 100 miles of Kyiv. Because we let him sort of go, thinking he was heading up to Moscow. I'm going, oh, that was clever. They plotted a course where Prigozhin looked like he was moving his troops and got no resistance from NATO. The whole NATO story. NATO's a bunch of pig fuckers. I mean, they're just bad people. Victoria Nuland. So people say, the bioweapons labs in Ukraine. Why do you have a bioweapons lab in Ukraine? We have 36 of them. Now, what they try to do is say, oh, those are old Soviet bioweapons labs, right? Blah, 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 blah. Well, I read Demon in the Freezer probably 25 years ago. Demon in the Freezer was a story of the Soviet bioweapons labs and how dangerous they were because they were in buildings with rusty roofs and it was just a nightmare waiting to happen. Well, it's 30 years later. So those labs do not exist. If they had to be dealt with, we dealt with them. What those labs represent, why Ukraine? Why do all roads lead to Ukraine, right? That's the title of my year in review. And the answer, I think, is because Ukraine is a great combination of a first world country in terms of being able to provide infrastructure and a third world country in terms of being able to let you do shit that no one else would let you do. So you can't just go to Nigeria because your weapons lab would break. So you need the Ukrainian infrastructure. The people who think somehow Ukraine's fighting for democracy, I don't know how ignorant you have to be to champion that idea. All you have to do, you can go on Twitter and search Azov Battalion on Twitter and find stories about what a bunch of Nazis they are from BBC and CNN and all these guys, right? They can't even hide the fact that the Azov Battalion's a bunch of Nazis who've been around since World War II. That somehow, oh, those are the good guys. Oh, and Putin's the bad guy. Putin is not the bad guy in this story. I don't even like it when someone says, well, it's evil. Putin never should have invaded. I go, bullshit. They were slaughtering ethnic Russians in the Donbass. I'd go in there. And then what do we do? What, a week ago? We offer cluster bombs to the Ukrainians. Why not just give them mustard gas and nerve gas and shit like that? Why is Biden, who gave him the cluster bombs, why is he not being taken to The Hague and tried for crimes against humanity for that one? And then someone tried to tell me, well, if the goal is to kill people, and I'm going, do you have any clue why 120 countries ban cluster bombs? As I said the other day, I said cluster bombs appear to be banned in 120 countries. The only ones that are not banned are the ones that we want to kill a lot of people. The cluster bombs are awful. They're just awful. Well, so we're the bad guys. We are the bad guys by my model, and I don't want to be one of the bad guys. So is Kennedy bad? Is Kennedy bullshit?
Are you talking about RFK?
RFK.
Yeah.
He's been fighting these guys for 30 years.
He has, but, you know, maybe he's a part of the show and the theater. I don't know. I am inspired. I don't know if that's the right word, because I'm not, you know, I don't heroes. I'm not inspired by him as a person. I don't know him. There are things I don't like.
His ideas are good. His ideas
some ideas are very good. He's open to a lot of things that I'm interested in.
Right.
Some of the things that he's very talkative about, I'm very interested in. The family, I can't figure it out, Illuminati or not, very compelling. Even as a little boy.
Here's the problem with the Kennedys. I don't think Joe Kennedy was that rich. Joe Kennedy was a pauper compared to the real rich.
Sure. Okay.
I think the Kennedy family is like, 500 million sort of. That
Nothing
is
to sneeze at. Nothing to sneeze at, but
no, but that doesn't get you into the big leagues.
No, but Jackie married Onassis, which I think got her into the big leagues, and they knew how to move up, and they killed the rest. And they've all, I mean, RFK Jr., so I was like, oh wow, this is interesting. And I do also think that there's a Trump aspect to this, where his campaign understands how media works, how to kind of really pop and sizzle right now. And I also think, I think that like him working out video, pumping weight, whether he's on steroids or not, like I think was very impactful, very viral.
Especially given Biden looks like he's about to die.
Right. And
Trump looks as virile as he's ever looked.
My father lived to 81, and my mother is 81 now. And when I was growing up, these are two smartest people I know. The New York City school teachers, could have been so much more, doctors, lawyers, accountants, whatever. They grinded it out, but they were just so smart, so logical, so creative, whatever, different people, my mom, my dad. But now I'm helping them more than, I ever thought I would. It's tough raising parents, and they're not as quick as they used to be. And my dad was, before he had to like settle down and raise a family, he was a stand-up comic, and he performed with the legends like Andy Kaufman in clubs in New York City.
Comics are smart.
Yeah. He wrote for Jackie Mason, sold jokes, and it was great. But he kind of gave it up for different reasons. His parents never supported him and held him back. Very young, wouldn't let him quit college to go do a show with, I don't know, the name's not coming to me right now, but very legendary. And I think it was Jackie Mason. And but I wouldn't want them to be president now, is my point.
Right.
Maybe 20 years ago. They're just not as sharp, fast. They're just not, and so it's crazy that we have the candidates we do. We should have the younger generation moving on. But so RFK is very compelling. And going back to his lineage, very inspirational. The Kennedys, what they fought for, at least in public. I do think he has this kind of outside shot like Trump did back in 2016. A lot of people are like, no way can he win. And the more people said that, the more I was like, holy shit, I think he's going to win. Because it just, that sort of like contrarian.
Well, he could certainly, he's already in a position to disrupt.
Right. And I like the disruption.
Right.
But I have no idea. And I Googled him, did simple Google search. Just like with Tucker, you could find out he once applied for the CIA. And Tulsi Gabbard, you can find out that she's in the psychological operations command unit of the military now and for a long time. And it's interesting. But RFK Jr., one of the things he's got all these extramarital issues, which I hate that that's even a part of.
Kennedy family, the Kennedy family.
I hate that this is even a part of politics, but it's there. And
do you know that it's true?
He's, I think, written a whole book. Supposedly his ex-wife released his diary where he slept with all these women while he was still married and graded them, and he called it his lust.
Well, he was also an alcoholic, so he went through his tough phase. There's no question that's true, and he's open about that.
As a teenager, his teenager cousin at the time killed a teenage girl, and was presumed innocent, and they fought it his whole life. And RFK was one of his biggest supporters, and then he finally was convicted 20 years later, and RFK is like, well, maybe he's framed. It's just very interesting. I mean, Teddy ran in 1980 after the rape incident, I think, and it was like you have these
rape or the Kopechne,
I should say, incident,
right?
And so
which, by the way, now wouldn't get you shit,
wouldn't get you anything.
Yeah,
but you have these diversionary candidates. I think every 4 years these diversionary candidates which peel off votes. I don't know what sometimes their point is if they know they can't win. And then you have like, okay, well, if his family's not part of it and the CIA killed his father and his uncle, like he's got to be insane to run. I mean, he's got to have a death wish in a way.
Unless he knows he's safe.
Unless he knows he's safe, right? That's what I've said before. So it's like, it's kind of between a rock and a hard place. He's got a death wish. That's kind of crazy in and of itself. Or he knows something that he's protected. So very interesting. But what I also think, though, is they that we always kind of refer to, they might want to restore dignity and some sort of pride and inspiration in this American project that has been so tarnished. And they want to maybe run the dollar a little longer, whatever. And maybe he's a great candidate for that and serves a great role for that. So I have no idea what's going on. But it is kind of very interesting because the Trump-Biden thing, I'm just not that interested in.
If it's Trump-Biden, that's so boring.
It's boring. I don't want it. It should be boring, but it's not boring in a good way. It's the Trump years were very hard. It was just annoying and frustrating. And the Biden years haven't been great economically. So, maybe change
to
would
me,
be good.
Biden is a way more flawed individual than Trump.
I agree. I'm trying to go light and just go over the whole thing.
I didn't know he was that bad. I just didn't know Biden was that bad. I didn't know the backstory. And now
I think the push and pulls on purpose. I think that's the ancient art of politics. And I think Trump was there to ram home tax breaks for the rich and to ram home COVID because I don't think America would have taken the lockdowns from Hillary and the left. They would have railed against, especially the right. So they were like, "Oh, the left will love this, and the right will take it from Trump."
I don't think they wanted Trump to get elected. I don't think there's.
I don't know. I have no idea. I mean, Trump goes back to the mob too. I just don't get it. He goes back to Roy Cohn. He goes back to the five families. Yeah, and so it's a very interesting time that we find ourselves in. And then you brought up like just what can we even believe online?
Well, so
fake videos, AI, all this stuff.
So one of the things that has happened that's made everything so different is the internet. Because before they could do their dastardly shit without being garish about it.
Right.
They ran the world, they laundered money, they did all sorts of shit, but we didn't have to hear about it. Now with the internet, now it's a brawl, right? And I think I don't know if it's a consequence of something they didn't see coming, but now they're just dealing with it. Whoever they are. But it certainly has changed the way the power structure has to wrestle with the masses, right? You can walk in the 7-Eleven and the guy behind that counter knows shit that's happening. And I chat with people all the time and I go, you can't hide anything. What you do is you just have to maintain the narrative, right? The laptop story, there's a good one. I mean, it's not like Hunter's laptop. I knew Hunter's laptop was real within a day. And the reason it was obvious is because, okay, so you got a laptop, you want to prove that it's real. You look at his email. You say, okay, here's 10 guys he emailed on these 10 days. You go ask him, did you get an email from Hunter that day? And if he did, you go, this thing's legit, right? It'd be trivial to confirm the laptops. And what's also shady as shit is how they got it, right?
That
This
was
idea
weird.
that he left it
I
in a
don't believe
repair
that.
shop.
I don't believe
On
this
the,
at all.
that's right. That's right. Now, on the other hand, when Rogan got confronted with that, he said, well, he is a crackhead. And I go, well, there is that, right? So it could be his life was that far out of control, but something
Sure.
smells wrong with how they got the laptop. And by the way, I think it supposedly is online searchable, but I also thought that Epstein's contact list was online, and then you hear that it's not, and it's just noise. I don't even know what to believe. And I think
What
part
if
of
it's
the
all AI videos and they left it on at the repair shop on purpose as a plant?
right.
I mean,
You
what if
know,
they've
they
got the AI technology? They've had it maybe for 10 years, 20 years before they let it commercially released, and they even had better than they're releasing right now. We have no idea.
Yeah, what if we're seeing 10-year-old technology, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I once read a book after watching a talk by a guy named Thomas Barnett of the Naval War College. And his talks, he'd say, I read stuff in the New York Times that I knew 5 years ago. That was the line that I remember vividly. Now, I got to be careful here, a contact who works at a place that's well connected. And he said to me, this is like March, he said, in October, November, you're going to start hearing stories about Iranian hackers. And in October, Seymour Hersh started writing stories about Iranian hackers. I go, oh, that was good. And I really have to be obtuse on this one. I can't say anymore because if I would hate him to get fired because someone put two and two together.
I understand.
There's this guy on Twitter who's supposedly 5 tours of duty intelligence in the whole Ukraine area. And he's out there calling bullshit. And he seems like sort of a sincere, honest guy, but you're going, is there anyone there was a guy in my doctor's Zoom group who's former national intelligence analyst. And I said, Stephen, he's on Twitter. He's listed kind of as that. So I said, Stephen, who's the they? He was tremendous wisdom. I say, we're talking about the vaccine or the release of the virus. And I said, we keep saying they, Stephen, who's the they? So Stephen's really funny. We're in this group, it's big enough that many of us don't know many of the players. And Stephen starts talking about Hegelian philosophy. And I'm thinking, oh boy, this bespectacled old man is going off the rails on this one. And then he starts making sense. And then someone stops and says, Stephen, are you a professor of philosophy somewhere? Somebody said, no, I'm a lawyer. He said, but I used to be a national security analyst. And he said, we knew that the Arabs basically follow Hegelian philosophy. It would be like if you were trying to understand the new woke culture. You have to know the language. You have to do James Lindsay 2.0. You have to be able to talk the talk. And he said, we all knew Hegelian philosophy like the back of our hand. Because then you could, when the Arabs were communicating with each other and just talking about things philosophically and stuff, you understood them. And I asked him about who the they is. And so, he said, I picked up two things, one directly from him and one I inferred. He said, well, I don't like to name names because that'll narrow your thinking. So if I say Bill Gates, you'll then say, okay, Bill Gates is the evil guy, and then you get to say, what's for dinner? We've solved it. We're not going to stop him, but at least we now have our answer. And he said, that will narrow your thinking dramatically. And then I inferred or extrapolated that bit of logic and thought, never, and George Friedman once said this, and at the time it made sense, and now it makes real sense. George Friedman of Stratford. He said, never underestimate any of the players. They're all smart. And what I realized is never dismiss someone as incompetent or stupid, because then you'll start dismissing what's happening right in front of your face. So Kamala, right? What a moron. You know, what'd she say the other day? You know, tomorrow will be today, tomorrow, and she does her Dr. Seuss thing. And as I said, a famous guy said she's dumber than dumb. But here's the problem. Someone is writing her speeches. And you can find a speechwriter. You can go to some English prep school and hire a 14-year-old to write a better speech than she does. Yeah.
Use an AI app.
GPT, right. And so there's a reason why she is being sold as a moron. So then remember Nina Jankowicz. So Nina was at the very end of part one of my write-up. Nina was the one who started doing show tunes and shit about Trump. And she's going to be the head of the Department of Disinformation or something, which people started calling the Ministry of Truth. And she looked like a complete fucking doofus. And you're going, how'd they pick this fucking moron? And finally she backed away. And then I noticed ever so quietly that they slipped in the former head of the NSA into the position. And no one said anything. I'm going, okay. So they had Michael Chertoff, Anita Jankowicz, and they said, oh, let's go with Jankowicz? No. Jankowicz was there to wear us down, and then Chertoff, they slipped in, and we're all paying attention to the fact that Jankowicz is gone. But then I find out from a guy named William Arkin at Newsweek, which is not exactly dark web shit. He said, you know, if we had dug into Jankowicz's background, it was very, very limited below the surface, her track record. The chick was doing PSYOP shit in Ukraine. And that whole thing she did was bullshit. She was acting like an asshole because someone said, go out and make an ass of yourself, like William Watt for Reagan. Remember him? You might not remember him. He was out there, he was a Secretary of Energy or something, doing all this dumb shit stuff. And while we were screaming about Watt being incompetent, we weren't screaming about Reagan sending arms to banana republics. And so Chrystia Freeland looks like an evil douchebag to me. Super, super, super evil. What happened to Adhern in New Zealand? What happened to her?
Oh, the prime minister who was like really authoritarian, and then she just
the
one who was like looks like a cokehead. Yeah.
Well, she looks like a horse. Big buck teeth. I find sexy actually. There's something about big teeth in chicks. And so then the question is, are we at a layer of the onion? We are so far from the truth. So I was talking about the Mark Rich, where Clinton pardons a bunch of people. He pardons Mark Rich. The Republicans chase him around. Nothing happens, right? So what? It's my favorite phrase. So what? No blood. Nothing happens. Remember, Matt Gaetz was starting to get guff about inappropriate things. And then all of a sudden, about a week later, they're gone. So whatever, that was a fastball past his chin. He's crowded the plate. Someone threw a fastball. And so in any event, so they chase Mark Rich around. They saying he's a financier, not mentioning he's Mossad. And then one day I'm watching a news show and they go, well, here's some other pardons of Clinton. And they scroll across the screen and they were unbelievable. So I went and looked at 1,115 or 20 pardons of Bill Clinton. And they're all drugs and money laundering. They're all bank fraud, drugs, money. It was all money. It was all money. It wasn't some grandmother in jail for shooting her abusive husband. And one of them was a guy who was in prison for possession of 800 kilos of coke. It's hard to write a story about why the president of the United States pardoned him. I can do it.
The
by
conspiracy
saying,
theories on the Clinton. I was digging into 9/11.
"Oh,
And
9/11's a disaster,"
but
right?
but what I was learning there, or not, I don't know if it's true, but is that the sort of the Bush family kind of became like the American family, or by basically like owning the mob through the CIA, or just owning.
Right, right.
And
You
then
have to
they,
remind yourself that George Sr. was head of the CIA. I had
yeah,
dinner with the former head of the CIA, John Deutsch. What a dickweed. I've never seen if someone's more arrogant than that. I just could not fathom someone being more arrogant than him. Go
imagine
ahead,
power.
continue.
Yeah, and so
Yes.
it seemed
And
like the Bush family was using the Clinton powers of Arkansas, because a lot of these drug running
right, Mina.
out of yeah, was going through all these military airports all over like the Midwest and the South, including Arkansas. And just how these families probably built power, or subsumed power within, the American sort of economy, through the CIA and drugs and organized crime. And um, I mean, it's
So there's a
kind of,
funny paradox here because on the one hand, it seems like someone who flies too close to the sun gets burned, right? So the investigator in Nebraska whose plane blew up, right? On the other hand, what I find even more troubling is how garishly they don't give a fuck. So I think the bad guys used to try to get away with stuff. Now it is as though they're gaslighting us on purpose.
mm-hmm,
They're saying, we did this shit and you can't stop us.
mm-hmm.
And there's a thing called that I got, it was recommended to me by a friend in Great Britain who we chat occasionally, called hypernormalization. Hypernormalization is where you know that things are really bad, but you also cannot see a way out. And so he talks about it in the context of the Soviet Union, where people would talk about how wretched life is in the Soviet Union. But there was just no sense that there was any way to fix it. And that's where the garishness is like trying to hyper normalize us. It's like we're trying to stop gender transitions in young kids. And we're just going to reach a point where we say, I just can't fight anymore. And one of the things I think, if you look at human evolution, it went from, a tribe or a breeding group to a tribe to a village to like city states, countries. And now the next logical move is global. So the globalist push, I think, is very real. I don't know why people give a fuck about being a globalist. I don't understand. At some level, crazy ass optimistic view is that they know more than we do, and they can see fucking problems that are horrific, and they're trying to solve them. Now, I don't think it's climate change. That's crap. It's total crap. I've dug into it. It's complete garbage. Anyone who's listening who thinks climate change is real is out of their minds. The case falls apart completely, except for the part about $150 trillion being spent on it. That part's true. But what if what they're doing is they're saying, we don't have enough oil. We don't have enough iron. We're running out of shit. And if India thinks they're going to take a whole ton, and if Africa thinks they're going to come out of their dregs, and that's not going to happen. Or even worse, the carrying capacity of the world is no longer 9 billion people. We've got to do something. So you say, okay, let's create a crisis. Let's find ways to sell it. 2 years ago, this was actually amazing. I said, they are going to create an energy crisis. Mark my words. What happened? Pipelines get bombed. Crisis, that energy stops flowing from Russia. right? And I'm going, oh, that was a pretty good fucking call right there. Why would they do that? Because they want people who just finished saying, just give me the fucking vaccine. Just give me the vaccine. Now are saying they're going to get them to say, just give me nukes. So let's say you knew nuclear power had to come. Let's say you knew that. I think that you could win hearts and minds one at a time, or you could fuck us up completely and then say, white knight, we can do this with nukes. Forget about Fukushima, forget about Chernobyl. We can do it with nukes, which, by the way, is the right move, in my opinion. But there's so many people who don't think it's the right move that they got to make us freeze a little bit. And then we'll say, give me nukes. If you have to, put it in my backyard. Right?
Yeah.
Now, here's a question I like to ask people. Do you find it astounding all the highly educated and really smart and rational people who think about ideas that we would have thought were completely crazy just a couple of years ago? So I reached out to a COVID guy. He wrote a book. I was done reading about it. I can't read about COVID anymore. I don't care what they tell me. I can't read about it anymore. But his book sounded good, and so I actually read his book. And he went down every fucking rabbit hole. This is a guy who ran a university vaccine program and then started to wake up and say, wait a minute, something's not adding up here. He ended up getting fired. And I don't want to mention his name because I want to tell you what he said to me, which is trivial, and I'd like to hype his book. But I contacted him. I said, he went down every rabbit hole. And I said, were you already prone to go down rabbit holes? For example, I was. When I was 7 years old, I watched Oswald kill Kennedy. And I go, why? Right? And that kind of stuck with me. And then as a freshman, Mark Lane, Oswald's lawyer, came to Cornell. Now, he was one of these famous swashbuckling lawyers. He took on that case. It was a big case for 2 days. And then he came to Cornell. I don't remember anything about what he said except for one thing. He said he was hired by the Kennedys. The Kennedys hired him to defend Oswald. Now, he could have been lying, but that was like, wow. Because they knew he didn't do it. Oswald, when he was talking to the press in the chaos, he said, I'm a patsy, I didn't do it. And someone was talking about it, and they said, that's not how people act when they actually did it. That actually is what you do when you didn't
Osama bin Laden basically act the same way?
I think so, probably. So in any event, I'm prone to go down these rabbit holes. I've been going down for a while. But I asked this guy, and he said, I knew the world had issues. But he said, it was like getting hit by a truck when COVID showed up. And I realized how bad things were. This is a guy, professor, major medical school, elite guy, running their whole COVID response. And he turned into a new world order, everything's fucked up beyond comprehension guy. I don't know a single person on my doc Zoom group and stuff. I don't know a single person who hasn't gone totally dark because of COVID, who looked into it. The one guy who won't admit it is Scott Alice. He came through the group, and I had about 15 minutes. I got to pepper him with questions. The problem is, I think he was potentially positioning for a White House cabinet position, and he didn't want to be quotable. I just had this feeling that he was not being straight. I think he was really honest, but he didn't want to step over the dotted lines that would be quotable after the fact. I'm suffering here. I don't know if we're all going to die from the vaccine. I haven't figured that out yet. So when my bladder stone showed up, I had good reason to believe it was a bladder stone. I was pissing sand. And then it stopped. And I said, either I'm not making sand anymore, or I'm not pissing it. Then I started to feel some pain and problems. And the medical system is so broken now that it took me months to wade through the morass to get a CT scan that I could look at and say, there's the stone right there. There it is. It's right in my bladder. It's a jagged rock. But the medical system's completely fucked up. I'm talking to a PA in an office in the University of Rochester Medical School. And then we started talking about this shit. And she said, oh, the system's totally hopeless. And she said they were going to require a boost. And this is after all the people who said, I'm not jabbing, had taken a hike. And she said they did a little sort of background work and they realized they were going to lose 25% more of their staff if they required the boost. So what did we do? Well, we took a population that's aging, that's putting a huge stress on the system. We're now starting to demand medical care as boomers that doesn't exist. They then lock the whole system down, generating a backlog. Then they got a whole bunch of people to quit. That's not a good hat trick right there.
And they took all the humanity out of it too.
Oh my God.
Turned hospitals into a factory, and
doctor's appointments are 10 minutes instead of 30 minutes, right?
And the whole there's three billers for every doctor, and
Zoom calls.
It goes on and on. Yeah. I mean, the system, I do think contributed to the death of my father, if not.
What'd he die of, in theory?
Well, in theory, I mean, he had prostate, he had bladder cancer.
See, that's why I'm going, look. And I finally said to him, I said, oh, here's the deal. I think it's a bladder stone. But they were talking about a CT scan in October. And I said, I don't want to find out in October that you guys are going to say to me, it's a shame it took this long because we could have saved you. Right? I didn't want to face that. And right. Cancer is one of the big sort of vaccine problems.
Well, what drove me crazy, so he's a lung cancer survivor.
Right.
And then he gets bladder cancer. And he couldn't do the treatment, which was, through the urethra. Right.
They fill up your bladder with chemo.
He couldn't do it.
Why? What do you mean?
He couldn't take the
pain or whatever.
No, the tube up his urethra.
Oh, I've gotten that several times. Yeah. I live tweeted a cystoscopy.
Oh my God, he couldn't do it. For to save his life, he couldn't do it. So
couldn't they anesthetize him?
So they decided. They debated that. Didn't work out, and then so they were like, "We need to remove the bladder," and that was basically a surgeon's advice. But he's 80 years old, and within 3 days,
up with like a colostomy equivalent from the bladder.
Everything started breaking down. His intestine collapsed, so he couldn't eat, and they didn't understand what was going on with him. They thought he didn't have the will to live and didn't want to eat. All my dad likes to do is eat. And
yeah, right. Trust. I'm in his camp.
His stomach is blowing up. He's in pain. He's screaming every time. And he's a diabetic, and they're feeding him Caesar salads and ice cream right after surgery. I mean, none of this makes sense. His doctor who sold him the surgery is, out of town. So nobody on staff can diagnose or prescribe or evaluate him.
Right.
I come back, doctor's still on vacation. I see what's going on. I couldn't rally the troops. The nurse, she's there for 10 hours. She's gone when you finally convince her that it's more than XYZ. The visiting doctor on the floor, he can't do anything until he,
The other thing you find is you ask a bunch of doctors the same question and the answers are all over the ballpark.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then you get into CYA and, but while this is all happening, they wake up every 45 minutes for a different test, a different shot, a different exam. It's all mandatory. at the same time, they're all telling you all you need to do is sleep. That's the best thing for you. Just try to get some sleep. I can't get sleep with all these tubes. They got the white lights, the noises, everything going on. And through that, everything just started to collapse. He's 80 years old, and
so I was lucky. My dad had several aneurysms fixed. Each one got worse. Then he had a pretty big one, and they did a wait and see, which is their way of saying, look, you lose a lot when you get an aneurysm fixed. It takes the hide off you pretty bad, and it's sequential. So he had a second one, and then he's doddering. And the third one, his quality of life would have sucked if they fixed it. And so they just waited. And then I didn't know he was dying. And I remember talking to my brother saying, I think he'll be home and this and that. But I sat there all day with him while he slept. And I realized when he died that night, I go, you did know he was dying. You knew intuitively somehow. It didn't reach the conscious mind, but it was pretty painless. I mean, it was a pretty good way to go. My mother breaking her neck, boom, and she could have had a very ugly finish. She had all sorts of problems, and so, so it was merciful. I didn't have to raise my parents, as you called it. That was a good term. My wife, on the other hand, could become a real challenge. My wife has had 60 surgeries. That's not an estimate. That's a count. And those aren't surgeries like she had 27 stitches in her finger because she did battle with a hedge clipper. That's not a surgery. Surgery's OR, under anesthetic or epidural surgery. And back fusion, neck fusion. She had a vomiting disorder, broke her neck 3 times. She could have an unpleasant finish. She's suffering now.
Amazing. I mean, I just watching my father, and I used to be in the healthcare business. I'm still in the healthcare business, actually, as an accountant. I work with a large retail pharmaceutical distribution company. And I've been in healthcare and different aspects of insurance for a lot of my career. And but it was and I've read these books where just the hospital and the medical environment is degrading to the the longer you're in the hospital, the less chance you have of surviving. And I saw it with my father in the sense that he comes out of surgery, he can't eat, he can't move, he couldn't do any of the physical therapy, he couldn't get out of bed. And at the end of day 3, they're like, he's supposed to be out of bed by now. That's what the doctor who performed the surgery, who's out of town. And, the best physical therapy bed in the other tower is now open. If you don't take it today, it might be gone tomorrow. He really needs it. If he doesn't get what, the best, he's going to be in the worst. You need to take that bed now. They transfer him to physical therapy. He's not even able to get a bed. The physical therapist is like, great, you're in PT. You should be getting up. They're pushing him, forcing him. The man can't eat, can't lift his arms. Then completely breaks down, ends up in ICU.
That's this gigantic bureaucracy.
Yeah, and then he ends up in ICU, save his life. And then basically they were like, okay, we have to get this man out of here because if he dies in here, it's our fault. So at some point they put him into physical therapy offsite, which led to
just to put him in a holding
just pattern. To get him out of there and say he left here okay, and from there we ended up where we should have probably been in a while ago, which was hospice, because the hospital was killing him just with the bright lights, the waking him up every 45 minutes. He couldn't get his.
Because the hospice guys know how to help someone die, right? And that's the
or maybe even help them recover.
Yeah.
By the time he got there, he was almost a vegetable and really in a lot of pain and needed a lot of morphine. And the man didn't take a pain pill before he got to the hospice. I mean, he just was like against it. But the system is just crazy. And I feel like that's where our economy.
It's also going to get worse because the boomers are just starting.
Right. And I saw that too, where because of the way the system's run, hospitals always at full capacity unless there's a pandemic, and then it's at overcapacity.
Yeah. Empty beds cost money.
And everything's a shift and everything's about per hour, and no one wants to be there, and the humanity's gone. So even the nurses can't help. They can't do anything. They can't go outside of protocol, and protocol is really brutal there. And I think that's where we are with our political and our economic systems.
So I have this working theory. Try this one on for size, that every time a computer makes a decision, it's binary. By definition, it's yes or no. You put your credit card in, it either pays the bill or it doesn't. You go through security at the airport, it either says let them go or not. There's very little room for human intervention. So it really is an arbitrary decision that you better hope the computer knows what it's doing. And therefore, in some sense, it's an authoritarianism, right? We've thrown ourselves at the mercy of this absolutely thoughtless, maybe cleverly constructed thing, but it's thoughtless, and if it gets it wrong, it's just tough luck. And then I realized is that the more decisions we turn over to computers, the more authoritarian our lives will be. They're going to be so rigid and so brittle, and there's going to be no one you can talk to unfuck the thing. It's going to be, well, that's what it says, and no one can override it. And that's where I haven't yet sort of wrapped my brain around this idea that AI could destroy humanity. That one strikes. I have trouble getting to there. I have no trouble imagining wishing you were dead, right? I have no trouble imagining. I got mad at a help desk the other day, and I try not to. In fact, I often chat with the people afterwards and say, how many people who call you are mad when they call? That sort of thing. I like to ask questions like that. And I got mad. And I said, oh, fuck yourself. I'm out of here. And I kept saying, I don't know what you mean by this word. Could you explain it to me? I wasn't getting good explanations. I got off the phone, and about 10 minutes later, I go, were you talking to a computer? I realized that there was this sense of recycling. And I'm going, either this is one dumb fuck, or the algorithm just has certain programmed answers in it. And I just wasn't sure. And that's going to be totally the norm, right? You're not going to talk to anyone ever. And
which has a pros.
Nah, it's a joke. It's a good joke, but that's it.
I don't need to talk to them at the drive-through, though. I think an AI prompt can get me through getting the Happy Meal for my kids.
Well, there are things for which the computer really works better. I got a Twitter feed that I chat with that I'm not convinced it's a person, but we have lovely discussions. I used to think Rudy Giuliani was tweeting from jail. One time I was at a bear market chat board back years ago when the only bear in the world was Bill Fleckenstein and David Tice. And I was at David Tice's website, and they had a chat board, and someone mentioned something about prison, and all of a sudden about 3 of the guys started chatting about how they were posting from prison. I go, oh, that's weird. I didn't know that. these probably Wall Street crooks, but yeah. So I thought maybe Rudy, who seemed to have unlimited time, I thought maybe he was inside some Club Fed with a laptop just all day long, just motoring. I've been thinking about, I have this very strong bond with Rudy. It goes right back to the beginning. And I can remember the first time I sort of noticed his cleverness when he said, and I just laugh at this every time I think about it. And he said something not being fake. He said, it's not fake. He said, it's not like the Loch Ness Monster or North Dakota. And I go, oh, that's so fucking funny. That is just so good. How does your twisted mind think that way, right? So I started analyzing Rudy's use of humor. I started watching it and saying, what is it that makes him so funny? And he slips absurdity in. That's what he does. He slips absurdity in. He says things that you go, oh my fucking Lord, I wouldn't have thought of putting those 2 words together in the same sentence. So there's that. When are you going to post this thing? I'll tell you a story if you're going to post. How long did it take to post this thing?
It might go out really soon.
Maybe, okay, then I'll tell you the story.
If I can hold it back and I get a good story, I will, because I got a couple episodes in the can. So
well, now I'll tell you when it's over. I'll tell you when it's over. In any case, so what topics? Ukraine. you think the Ukraine war is going to end? I do. I think it's almost over. I think I also think Zelensky's going to die. Guys who lose wars who are on our team, they don't survive long, right? You look at all the dictators who the U.S. ultimately turned against. Their life expectancies really suck. And so, Zelensky's not getting the love all of a sudden. They're pretending like he's getting the love, but there's too many situations where that game is over. It was farcical, so I'm glad it's over. Think how many lives would have been saved if back in April of 2022, Zelensky had been allowed to meet with Putin and straighten out the situation. There were guys like, I think it was Ritter, who was convinced that because the Azov guys were so fucking lethal, but the Russians were somewhat confident that they could work with Zelensky, that they had an extraction team ready to get him out of Kyiv if they needed to. Because I think, as the story goes, the Azov guys said, look, you either play it our way or you're going to die. And I think Victoria Nuland said the same thing. So there's that. Speaking of evil bitches, I think that war's almost over. That offensive was farcical. Right? They were talking about sending 30 Abrams tanks, which were circa 1975 Abrams tanks, which means that it would take 31 Russian armaments to take out all 31 Abrams tanks. And apparently, I saw some stats. Russia has something like 5 times as many tanks as Europe. And so we're fighting an artillery war, which I think no one thought we'd ever do again.
Right.
And Russia's got artillery.
The war, it's a fascinating situation. Interesting speculation that it might end soon. Zelensky, you mentioned it, he might not survive the war, but he was an actor. And I want to tie this a little bit in, and Hollywood loves him. They visit him. But I want to ask you about 2 events. I have a couple more questions for you before we roll out. So I'll roll 2 questions into one to get it to 2 questions. So what did you make of the Damar Hamlin NFL situation?
That's a fascinating question. I love that question.
I'll tie it in with the Chris Rock, Will Smith, Hollywood act.
They're in the same category.
Yeah.
You and I are on exactly the same page. So let's go to the Rock Will Smith story first. They were friends. The evidence to me looks pretty good that Rock knew a slap was coming. You can see him leaning into it. You can see him grimacing. He knew it was coming. Then the question is, why did Rock, let's say he didn't. I think the right thing to do would have come out a couple days later after your fragile ego had been rubbed and save Smith. So we set it up. Right? You owe me one, Will. They didn't. What the fuck was that all about? What was the other one again? The Hamlin one. I think part of the gaslighting, they actually set us up to take the bait and then make us look like assholes. So Hamlin goes down hard. I had no trouble imagining that he was a zombie. He shows up at the stadium. Great moment in football history. They cover his face. They bring him in his sunglasses. They put him in a box without any family members. He waves to the crowd. You can't tell who it is. You go, that's not Damar Hamlin. Twitter was going wild on this, right? Do you remember that? And then he does, and then he gives this speech that looks like maybe an AI-based speech. It was all very choppy. And then he actually shows up. And then I'll say, it's like, look, you assholes, you're always wrong. You're wrong on this one. Just shut up. Tuck your tail between your legs and quit saying shit like that. It feels like that was a gaslighting. They baited us into taking, we took the bait, and then they made us look like assholes. It was a screen pass. It was just like January 6th was a screen pass. Democrats smell blitz. Quarterback drops back. They let him rush in. They rush in. And they score a touchdown. Look at the political shift that occurred in about 8 hours. What a brilliant political move. 8 hours later, they got their president in. They made Trump look like an asshole. They made the Republicans look like an asshole. What a great play. I still think, I'm not convinced Ashley Babbitt got shot. I think she died, but I don't think she got shot. You ever seen that video?
No.
There's a video at Rumble that takes all the footage. And the guy's kind of doing it free association. He's going, look at this, look at this. He goes, this is fucking funny. And they show like the guy trying to get out some gauze or something. So everyone's screaming, oh, she's been shot. But there's people there who have medical training, and they're not doing anything medical. They're just shouting and yelling and creating chaos. And some guy's pulling out the gauze. He's got, look at that, he gives them a nickname. So he's taking a while to get that gauze out, isn't he? And then he finally gets the gauze out. What's he do? He wipes off her jacket with it. Just stupid shit like that. Then they haul her away in the puddle. Looked like someone spilled a shot glass of blood. There was no splatter on an eggshell wall. There were just so many things wrong with the story. And I tried to write about it, and the problem is it was too visual. You couldn't write about it. And I had people saying, Dave, I see the point you're trying to make, but I'd be careful with this one. So I was having people warn me away from this one. But they show footage of her being taken out of there. Now, it's the Capitol building, right? There's medical care in that Capitol building. They would throw her on a gurney in that Capitol building. They would have oxygen. They would have all sorts of shit in that Capitol building. They dragged her down the fucking back stairs with her backpack on. And then what do? They do CPR for the public's viewing. Now, I ask any doctor, which I did, you got a neck shot, would you do CPR? Boop-ba, boop-ba, boop-ba. Oh, yeah, let's just pump the blood right out of her fucking system, right? And then there's just so many things wrong with it. I'm going, okay, here's what happened. They teed this thing up, and someone said, well, why would they do that? I, by the way, had seen Ashley Babbitt before January 6th. I go, how is there 350 million people in this country? And I remember seeing a video of Ashley Babbitt raising holy hell before she got shot. How is that possible? So in any event, probably Ray Apps, right? They wheel her out. I think the intention was to wheel her away and then say, have a nice day, right? But someone jammed a syringe load of KCl in her system. Something like that. Someone walked up the gurney, CIA guy, boom, jammed her, she died. So now they shot her, she's dead, case closed, we're done. So I think Ashley didn't realize she was about to be written out of the plot. Just like a number of those guys who thought they were working with the FBI when in fact they were about to be thrown in jail. They didn't know that they were the patsies, like Oswald would say. And so I think there's all sorts of shit like that. The Babylon Bee had a spoof issue where they said FBI discovers it's hard to solve a crime they didn't cause. The FBI seems like it's worthless, right? I keep hoping that 95% are good and somehow there'll be an insurrection within the agency to straighten it out. But you go back to J. Edgar Hoover, it's not like he was a cupcake. And they had dirt on him too. So he had dirt on everyone. They had dirt. Everyone had dirt. And they all just agree not to kill each other. And in some cases, they killed each other. Yeah, the Clinton. Did you see the Anthony Weiner interview he did where the guy started poking at the Clinton kill list?
I didn't see it.
Oh, it's amazing. So Weiner's being interviewed by a guy. You'd recognize the guy, I think. PDF or something, some guy. He's a cantankerous, very bulldoggy interviewer. He starts asking Weiner about the Clinton death list. And Weiner starts shitting his pants. And he's doing everything to prevent the guy from taking it further. And he's yelling and screaming. And the guy's going, I have a question. You got to let me ask my question. And Weiner's just shouting and shouting. So I did a poll. I showed it. And I did a poll and said, Weiner's response was because A, he was mad and it was legit. B, he lost his shit. C, he was covering bad stuff, something like that. And everyone said he was covering bad shit. So the Clinton kill list is really rather staggering. They're varying degrees of probability, right? So Vince Foster, you go, someone whacked Vince Foster, right? That story's a disaster. And I'm reading it one day, and every one of them, it's like, probability's not high, but it's a very interesting case. And they get to JFK Jr. and I go, oh, come the fuck on now. JFK Jr., really? They killed JFK Jr. And then you go, well, they say there are pilots who say what actually happened did not make sense. But more to the point, he was about to announce that he was going to be running for the Senate.
He was running, I think, and he was in the
New
lead.
York State. And who got it?
Hillary.
Right. So another Kennedy bites the dust. The Kennedy curse. So I mean, we could be no better off than so back to the globalists. I was going to say something about the globalists. If you want to go global, there's a book called Theocracy. They talk about, using technology to run the world instead of people, things like that. If you want to go global, the United States really is what stands between you and global. And it's more precise than that. Within the United States, you can buy off the power elite. They're easy. You can step all over the poor. But the US's middle class is the strength. It's the MAGA guys. It's the gun toters. It's the guys who believe in the American way deeply. So if you look at what they're doing, everything looks like it's an attempt to destroy the U.S. middle class.
Yeah, I have a book. I'm looking for a book behind me, The Controlled Demolition of America.
Oh, that's the title?
Yeah, and it's the theory that, they're trying to, they don't want to raise, the third world up to our living standards. We're all useless eaters, so they got to break us and bring us down and break this economy. They get to buy it cheap or whatever, but they don't like where we are in our standard of living.
Well, I think we're doing and the other thing is they're not going to do it by pulling battleships up to the shore.
No,
right? They're going to do it by getting us to destroy ourselves.
Right, Marxism from within.
Right, and this is where James Lindsay comes into the game as the true expert on modern Marxism and financial crises will take out the middle class in a very big way. And COVID, fucked up mom and pop businesses to an unbelievable level, right? So they sent most of the U.S. economy into a global world, right? Linda's Diner no longer exists, right? And so I generally believe that model. I don't know how to think about the they. And this Stephen guy in my Zoom group said, think of it as a self-assembling oligarchy. They don't know each other.
They don't even have to coordinate. There's a lot of incentives here that, a lot of people who have power or, control would act in the same way if things happen,
Right.
and they'd be like, oh, I see what you can do. I could do the same thing. It's just coordinated through natural incentives. It doesn't have to be in a speakeasy, behind closed
Right.
doors.
Well,
But
it's
there
like a
might be some of
starling
that. I don't know.
murmuration. It's like a starling murmuration. There's 5,000 starlings making these spectacular patterns.
Right.
Which one is leading that group? And
I think
so the
part
books,
of it's
so the
human
books
nature.
you want to read.
Yeah.
The books you want to read, the True Believer is phenomenal, in my opinion. The True Believer. I read Matthias Desmet's book on the psychology of totalitarianism, which I wasn't going to read because I thought it was going to be a COVID book. And there was some COVID, but it was much more broadly based than that. And he tells a pretty compelling story that it's not the emergence of evil or the emergence of a powerful elite. It's the emergence of a highly flawed ideology that gets hold of both the elite and the masses. And that kind of fits with the True Believer book by Eric Hoffer, where people's lives suck and they want to believe in something. So they believe in climate change. They believe Donald Trump is making their lives miserable, and therefore we must destroy Donald Trump. And therefore, if I'm counting votes in Arizona, it might not be the thing I want to do, but if getting rid of Donald Trump is it, then I'm making the world a better place. And so you get people who believe the fuckers who throw tomato soup on Van Gogh paintings, sit in front of truck drivers. I go, do you have any understanding who you're hurting by doing this? I sit there and watch the climate activists sit in front of the cars and truck drivers. I'm thinking, all you need is one guy to gun it and turn them into smush. And that game will go away pretty fast. Now, it's not going to happen. It's probably not good. Peter Boghossian, who's kind of a friend and very smart guy, says the solution to radical leftism is not radical rightism. And I have to remind myself of that because I got this real frontier justice lock and load mentality, which was really coming out at the start of this interview. And but the problem I have is I don't know how to fight these nitwits. I don't. But here's one for you. How about the Daniel Penny story? He's the guy in the subway who choked the guy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right. So here's a guy who comes and says, I'm going to kill you all, and I don't care if I die. And a Marine and another guy who's a black guy subdue him. The press said he choked him for 15 minutes. I watched the videotape. He choked him for 90 seconds. 90 seconds. Give the guy a medal. No chance could I ever convict him if I was on the jury. The very fact that he got indicted means the next time that happens, no one's going to step in. There's no law to do this, but I would convict the prosecutor of something. Treason. I'd go for treason. I go, you are attempting to destroy the fabric of the United States of America. You are a skanky motherfuck. You should eat shit and die. The guy, it's the same guy who also indicted someone else. Who was it? It's that Bragg guy.
Right.
Who else did he indict? He indicted someone else.
I forget, but yeah.
Trump. I think it was Trump.
Right.
And I'm going, you just indicted an American hero. Now, the problem is, probably nothing's going to happen to him. Except for the fact that who in their right mind would do that again?
He also looked like, a Fed. I mean, he's a Marine, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a Marine. Yeah.
I mean, he's military.
So then what happened is they indicted him. They didn't indict the black guy.
Right.
And then after weeks, they finally indicted the black guy because they realized that the charade was just too ridiculous. By the way, did you see that Chauvin is appealing to the Supreme Court or something? Now, here's a funny fucking story that I could not believe. I was listening to either a podcast or a Zoom call, and I can't remember which, with Pierre Corey, the famous Pierre Corey. And before COVID, or during COVID, I can't remember what, but before he became famous, he did another very prominent thing. He was the expert witness in the civil trial against the city or the state for the Chauvin killing, for the George Floyd killing. He was the expert. And I learned some stuff from him. He said, I thought Chauvin died of an OD. I thought Floyd died of an OD. He was pumped full of shit. He said that's absolutely not true. That's not what an OD would look like. Never happened. What he did say, which is fascinating, he said, if you actually look at what suffocated him, it was the knee on his back, not the foot on his throat. It was his inability of his chest to rise up and down that killed him. But they had to get Chauvin. And most people don't know the rest of that story. I wrote about it. It takes balls to write about the George Floyd killing. I wrote about it through the lens of why it would be a difficult conviction. Rather than talking about whether he should be convicted, I just looked at the technical challenges. And there was all sorts of footage of him in the cop car before any of this happened saying, I can't breathe. Tremendous amounts of footage of him saying, I can't breathe, I'm suffocating. And then it turns out what a lot of people don't know is Chauvin and George Floyd
were together. They worked at a nightclub together. He was the
security
guard.
That was famous for money laundering, which by the way,
and which
Floyd
burned
had,
down like within a
which
week.
Burned down.
Right.
And then when they interviewed the people, you got the usual garbled interview that makes no sense. Where are you going? It's like Stephen Paddock's brother. When they interviewed him, he said nothing. Like, let's talk Uvalde. They're shooting kids for 77 fucking minutes. There's 370 cops
in a small
town.
And
no one goes in a small town. Now, who went in? A mother and an off-duty security guard, border guard. Do you know their names?
No, but I mean, the mother was like to me, I don't know her name, but she's legendary. She's badass. And then she disappeared.
Right. But normally badasses become fairly well known, like Sully, the guy who landed the plane in the East River,
she wasn't popularized. No.
Right. And I watched her get interviewed, and she did the same thing as fucking goddamn Stephen Paddock's brother. She talked incoherently. And she was talking about stuff and contradicting herself. And you can say, oh, it's the trauma of the moment, but weird stuff like, they wouldn't let me in, and then I'm in there, and I wanted a bulletproof vest. And then she says, and then she gets asked, were there any cops there? She said no, and I go, well, who's going to give you the bulletproof vest, right?
Right, and she hops the fence. She goes home, gets her own gun. She has time to go home and get the gun. I mean, it is an unbelievable story. I remember that.
77 minutes. Now, you give me a phone book from Uvalde. I picked 10 men's names out of that phone book. 5 would have gone in.
Right.
You know that's true. You know it's true because you go, kids are dying in there. The Uvalde Police Department, they are a bunch of dads. Kids are dying in there. You know that you'd go, this is the moment. This is where I have to go in. This is Ballard in reality. And none went in. And I'm going, this story's bullshit. The Vegas shootings is a complete crock of shit. Utter crock of shit.
So, I mean, it's funny, all these stories from Anne H. You guys, you got to listen.
Right, Anne H.
You got to read the piece. Anne H. I'm trying to look at my notes here. Nancy Pelosi's husband.
Oh, God. Yeah, these are great stories.
Circling back to the, Damar Hamlin thing. Well, it was very strange. I mean, he wouldn't answer Michael Strahan's questions about what happened and what doctors think it is. What was the strangest thing to me was when it all happened, the seance, everyone was surrounding him. Everyone was kneeling except for one player whose last name was Neal, number 33, was not kneeling. And that was, You can look into that. It's a Freemason number. It's a very strange thing.
Oh, the 33. I
yeah.
just saw that the other day. 33.
Yes. So
my
you'll
God.
see it everywhere now. But
no, did you see that montage where they talked about the number of COVID cases?
Yeah,
they show interview after interview of people
right.
in different cities and towns and states, and they kept saying we've got 33 cases. They kept saying 33 over and over again.
Yep. And if you look at the Chris Rock thing, I mean, if that was a real assault, I mean, the police would have arrested Will Smith. I mean, we have it on camera. We have witnesses. If that's real, that is assault.
So what was it?
Well, what was it? It was a spectacle and a show, and I don't know what it was. But
Chris, I think Will Smith seemed to pay a very high price for it.
Yes, he did. And I think there were these rituals, whether they're humiliation rituals or energy draining rituals that are conducted. But I don't know. It's a hall of mirrors. And so I'll read one of the quotes from your work. One of the saddest lessons of history is this: if we've been bamboozled long enough, we tend to reject any evidence of the bamboozle. We're no longer interested in finding out the truth. The bamboozle has captured us. It's simply too painful to acknowledge, even to ourselves, that we've been taken. Once you give a charlatan power over you, you almost never get it back. Carl Sagan. Eric Hoffer went on to say, propaganda does not deceive people. It merely helps them to deceive themselves. I want to mention a couple more quotes. St. Augustine of Hippo said, the truth is like a lion. You don't have to defend it. Let it loose. It will defend yourself. And one of the other quotes from your work, you quoted Banksy. I mean, they say you die twice. One time when you stop breathing, and a second time a bit later on when somebody says your name for the last time. So my final question for you tonight, Dave, I mean, this has been epic, but my final question for you is, what does it mean to you to be human?
I don't know. I've been haunted by the lyrics to Eleanor Rigby lately. Look at all the lonely people, right? And it's a story of everyone being alone. And I think ever since COVID started, so I had a rough stretch because I got canceled badly. Now, I had support from a number of trustees. I had some seriously power, but it was a beating. It was a serious beating while locked down. And I think COVID hurt everybody psychologically. I think we all got wounded by it. And I think that helped me decide to retire. But I watched the world around me, and I'm kind of losing the sense, but it used to look to me not too long ago like people were just going through motions. And it's just like, is your goal really to just get to the next day, to get to the next paycheck, and I'm a very optimistic guy, and I've had a phenomenally successful career. Not by everyone's metric, but by my metric. There's people who think they're way more successful, and I'd say, well, let's compare notes if you want. I will. I'll match wits with you. Show me another academic chemist who chats with Larry Summers, right? And I was on Merck's long-range steering committee, one of 5 scientists. I never knew how corrupt pharma was, so I consult and collaborate with Pfizer, Genentech, Searle, I said Merck, Amgen, you name it. I consulted with Pfizer for 20 years. I never saw the corruption because I was at the scientist level. And the scientist level were guys trying to just do cool shit. I remember the Merck long-range steering thing, they lifted up their skirt for 5 of us. 3 chemists, 2 from med schools. Which, by the way, there's awards that I don't win, but Merck chose me to be on their steering committee, right? That was pretty cool. It was all biological, and this was years ago. You could see the biology had hit. So what's it mean to be human? First and foremost, don't think you're going to leave legacy. So I like the Banksy quote. But this is all you get. It's the path. I watched Howard Cosell interview one day, and he was dying. He was a legend. I never quite understood why, because he struck me as kind of a dork, but he was. And they asked him about his career, and what you'd expect him to say is, it was an amazing journey. And he said it all seemed so stupid. He went totally the other way. And it clicked. I mean, it hit me hard. Don't get there. Or whatever you do, don't get there. So I was talking to my son today. My wife, my oldest son is a stepson. I showed up around 4 years in. He's a sweetheart. But he and my wife are so tight because we're just her and him against the world. And my younger son, my wife had all her health problems, and so I raised him. And so it's like my older son is her son. My younger son is my son. It's just the way it worked. We had to battle the world, lock arms, and that's how it worked. But I'm fiercely proud of the fact that my dad taught me this, that when the shit hit the fan, I think I successfully stepped up to the plate, did the right thing. When I make a big decision, these are important. I spent a lot of time thinking about philosophy of life. I talk to my students about it, you name it. And the students have changed, and that bothers the shit out of me. I used to tell funny stories. Now they call them interruptions. What's it mean to be human? I made the right call. Somebody asked me, what do you regret? This was a great question. What do you regret? What's your big regret? I couldn't come up with one. Oh, what I say to people when you're going to make a big decision, ask yourself, if I do this and it goes very badly, will I forgive myself? If the answer is no, don't do it. Period. You got to be able to live with the consequence. And if you say, look, it goes badly, will I be able to look back and say, given everything you had, that was it. You had the information you needed. You made a well-reasoned decision. And for me, things like well-reasoned decision means, even though my job is very demanding, 16-hour days are not rare in this game. I blew out all the bullshit that's kind of optional. I took care of my family. And so if you can look back and say you did that, I was told my career would fail on a number of occasions because I was going to shock you. I took a contrarian approach. I entered a field that everyone said was dead. And I said, I actually think it's got a huge number of unsolved problems. And I almost failed. And then the tires caught the road, and I record-breaking streak of grants in a row. So good that the dean presented it to the trustees as a case study in success. It was like 1 in 10 to the 15th probability of that many grants in a row. It was ridiculous. In a field where I was told I wouldn't be fundable. And so I don't care about awards. I have colleagues who live and die for awards. I couldn't give less of a fuck what a 3-man committee says about me. But when one of the most famous organic chemists at Harvard says we should have hired you, I go, that's pretty good. I'll take that one. And there's 10 people in this world, if they think what I do is worth a shit, the other 8 billion can eat my shorts. And so what is it to be human? Tough question. I don't have regrets, though. I don't have any. I couldn't think of any. I couldn't think of any big fuck ups. And I still haven't. It's been lingering with me going, what did you regret? I wish I'd watched a little less TV in high school, but I was a mediocre student, but working on 10% impulse power. And I think I could have done a better job at that, right? I don't think I had to do so little homework. But then I ended up breaking Columbia's Ph.D. record for the fastest Ph.D. 2.5 years. You know, those 3 degrees you read? 2.5 years. So I got my bachelor's in 77 and got 3 more degrees by 80. And I was the second string at Cornell. I worked every waking hour, but I was not a great student because I did the study in high school, so I didn't know what I was doing. And then you say, well, how'd you get to Cornell, Mr. Smarty Pants? You had to have been smart. No, I was not. What I was is the grandson of Thad Collum, who was simultaneously the vice chancellor of the Board of Regents of New York State, a member of the Cornell Council, and president of the National Alumni Association. So if anyone wonders how I got into Cornell, that is your answer. He controlled every penny. And I got in, and to my credit, I didn't waste the opportunity. But I was a 3.4 GPA in college, working my butt off. But importantly, it wasn't about the grades, it was learning how to work my butt off. That was what was important. What do you think it is to be human?
Oof.
Oh, you hypocrite. You don't have an answer. You ask me, huh?
Oh, that's the way the show's designed. I'll say a few things. So the piece you wrote, I love reading your year-end pieces, and I really recommend people read it in full. We've covered a lot here, but there's way more. And we didn't get into, we talked about the last show, but the worker shortage and the labor shortage. And you bring up, you know, maybe being born alone and sort of the idea of dying alone. And my father was married for almost, I think, 50 or 60 years. I'm getting to the end of the night too. I'm losing the numbers as well. But I felt like he died alone. I wrestle with that thought.
How many kids? How many kids?
2 beautiful kids. And but there's a couple of really interesting things you also wrote personally in this piece. One, that you were taking acid in middle school, which predates going on to the MA, the MS, and the PhD in 2.5 years.
Yeah, I was drinking. I was getting shit faced in 6th grade, smoking pot in 7th grade. And I think it was by 9th grade I was doing acid. Yeah, and by 12th grade I gave it all up. College was drug free largely.
Well, so I did a little better than you in college. I got a 3.78 or something like that. I graduated, I think, magna cum laude. My first semester was shit, and then I was terrible, and then I just busted my ass making sure I got.
Well, that's so. Here's what happened to the students,
on.
by the way. The students who are locked down never learned how to go to college. We're seeing it.
I'm sure there's repercussions from.
Think of the damage done.
Some
kid's trying to learn how to read in 1st grade.
Oh,
he's got a mask on, and the teacher's Zoom call.
Yeah, no, I went through it with my kids. I mean, they tried to tell me that a couple of years ago, my son, this kid, it's kind of, I'm dealing with the fact that he's probably smarter than me already, and it's a little frustrating, but I'm super proud of him. But his teacher tried to tell me that
that's the newest family member.
Is that a French bulldog?
It's a Boston Terrier.
Boston Terrier.
As of this morning.
Nice.
It's a rescue dog.
They tried to tell me that my son had a speech impediment or something. They sent him to speech therapy. They put him behind a glass wall because the speech therapist wouldn't talk to him until he was, separated from her physically. And then she was like, maybe if you take off your mask, that will solve the problem. And no one thought. I mean, it's crazy. And
they knew this because I saw a video once where a woman they chose to teach Mongolian to kids because they knew they wouldn't get it by mistake. And the woman would teach Mongolian, and then they tried to teach Mongolian using the same woman through a screen. And the kids didn't learn it because the kids don't learn it if they don't try to relate.
Right.
It was so stupid.
It's beyond. And just thinking about the level of deception. So I want to read a little bit from your piece, which ends with a little bit of wisdom, especially for the younger people in the crowd. But let's now talk about Justin Trudeau, referred to as a creepy fucking dictator by Joe Rogan. I find him less dangerous than Freeland because he seems like an expendable twit. His rules go back to his legal father. former Canadian Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau. Pierre had profound ties to Mao and Castro back when none of the cool kids supported those guys. There's a quote from Justin Trudeau: the level of admiration I actually have for China, because their basic dictatorship is allowing them to actually turn their economy around on a dime, and to say that we need to go green fast, invest in solar. And it's kind of interesting. The acorn may have not fallen far from the tree, or did it? The internet is filled with rumors that Justin's mother was a free sex hippie. Here is a picture of the Trudeaus with Castro. That is an unusually adoring look on her face. And she was looking at him rather adoringly. And then you went on to Road. I think this is a pretty incredible tidbit here, but I learned a general rule from college. A hand on the back is tight on the personal space, but vague. A hand on the chest means you're going to score, which is a picture then of Justin's mom with her hand on the chest
Castro's chest.
On
and you
Castro's
go, that
chest.
hand is so close to his dick. You know that's true. You know that's true.
And then the picture, now I ask what the internet has been asking for years. Does Justin look like Pierre, and did Fidel get lucky? And then there's pictures of Justin looking a lot like Pierre at various ages in his life. Dave, this has been epic, fascinating, and incredibly dope. I'll leave it to you for any parting words and to let people know where they can find you.
Well, so I'm supposed to hype the fact that a couple of my year-end reviews are on Amazon. Now, they're also free on the internet, so you got a little bit of a loose screw up there if you pay for it.
I want to buy one of these. I mean, these are epic.
You could call it a pay. Well, the other thing is the formatting's a little sketchy and stuff, but the stuff's there. But it's think of it as a Patreon. Now, the other thing is it was done by Bob Moriarty, and he didn't even tell me he was doing it. So 2009 through 12 are one volume. He says he's locked and loaded the next one, he's ready when it's time, but I don't know what years it is. And he also did 2022. I'm supposed to hype it. Now, the problem is it is free on the internet. But next time, I think I'm going to release it on Amazon and see if I can make some money. I didn't make much money this time. And,
yeah, well, people like to support, and whether it's free or not, I think there's a lot of people that want to support.
Well, buy 50 copies, and send them to all your friends. Then it turns out, even as stupid as it was, I made something like $5,000, which I said, Bob, we're not going to make a penny. But he hyped it, and he has a big following, and so people bought it. But the next one, I'll time it, because I do dozens of podcasts in December and January.
You could even maybe release it on Amazon and then 6 months later release it for free, or open source it so that people can PDF whatever they want.
I published it at Peak Prosperity, and I hate to abandon people just because a better opportunity arose. I got asked to consult with Pfizer, and they wanted me to be exclusive. And I was consulting for Searle for 1/5 the amount. But I begged him to let me stay with Searle, not because I gave a fuck. I just didn't want to bail on him.
Right.
I didn't want to be that guy. So Twitter, David B.
Well, your
Collum,
kids will suffer, not you.
My kids will. I'm doing fine.
They'll get a little less.
I'm doing fine. The Starving Academic. First of all, The Starving Academic is a fiction. I know chemists who are making, without starting a company, $500,000 a year. My salary, I have a friend at Pfizer who retired, and my net worth is twice his. And so the Starving Academic really is bullshit. And so I'm going to be fine as long as I don't fuck up, as you said, as long as I don't fuck up. But the fuck up potential is getting really high, because inflation can take you down to the studs if you play it wrong. But there's no one playing it as a value guy. And I think at some point it's coming in. I think you have to buy shit that has if you bought a fucking gas station and a year later you'd earn no money, that was stupid. Well, out of the S&P, 490 of them are not returning anything to you. So you can get all hot and fuzzy about the 10 super stocks, but there's 490 companies, despite the fact they are supposedly highly viable companies for which the owners are making nothing now. That's a flawed economic system.
Huge.
So it will come back. And by the time it comes back, John Hussman and I will not be forgiven. Jesse Felder. There's a few who have been talking value for years. And they'll say, yeah, well, you know, you were too early. And I go, yeah, well, I'm not fucked like you. So how's your Bitcoin doing? Doing okay?
It's doing what it's supposed to. You
I know.
You know, everyone has their own, you know, relationship or economically to Bitcoin when they bought it, or, you know, but if you look at it over a 5-year period, no one's down. It's holding value. It's a store of value.
Bitcoin
it's up
is
100%
designed.
in this environment. It's kind of crazy.
Bitcoin is designed to screw the people who have no idea why they own it. Right? There are guys who really understand Bitcoin, I think, and they know why they own it. And one of the characteristics of the guys who got stinking fucking rich on Microsoft, stinking rich, the common denominators, they never sold.
Right.
And the faint of heart are going to buy Bitcoin. They're going to panic. They're going to say, I wish I'd never done it. And then it'll go up again. And you have to marry an investment. If it's a really good investment, you got to marry it. People say, don't marry an investment. Of course you should marry an investment. If it's the right idea, it didn't become a bad idea just because the price isn't right.
Exactly.
And so buy something you're willing to hang on to if it goes south.
You have to do your own research.
Yeah.
And figure out what you want to be involved in and what you want to sink or swim with. I believe in Bitcoin. I think it's a Rosetta Stone. It doesn't it's not a get rich quick scheme though.
For some people, it was for a while.
It was and can be, depending on when you get in and how you leverage or this, that, the other. But it's not meant to be, or I shouldn't say it's not meant to be. It doesn't have to be. The tool doesn't have to only be used to speculate and leverage and go long in that manner.
Well, also the idea of using it is changing steadily. So there was this, you're going to use it to buy pizza. That's kind of not Bitcoin anymore, right? I looked at Bitcoin at $10 and passed on it. And that's one of those, well, do you regret that? And I go, no. And I can tell you very simply why not, because my reasoning was arguably wrong, but it was not flawed. More to the point, I know it would have gone up, and since I wasn't a believer,
you would have sold.
I would have sold.
Right. And you would have felt like a genius and not learned anything.
I would have been the fucking...
Do you think the flip side, though, is that you won't buy because you made that mistake?
Yeah. No, not because I made that mistake. I don't think
and mistake's not the right word. I'm not framing it as a mistake, because maybe it's not a mistake, but because you had that experience.
Well, it's hard to pass a 10 and buy a 30,000. There is a certain psychological effect.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
But when I buy Bitcoin, it won't be to get 10 to 30,000. It'll be as a mechanism. I'll know.
I think you're going to buy Bitcoin at a million when no one is buying the stocks anymore and there's no choice.
I will buy Bitcoin when I'm convinced you guys are going to have to do battle in a very big way. I'm convinced that Bitcoin, whether it's intentional or whether it's just the way the world works, I believe they're powerful people who seem to be playing along. I think they're teeing you guys up for a fight.
I agree. I mean, I agree. And the final boss hasn't really started the fight.
The fight hasn't started yet at all.
I think what, in my mind, I'm trying to wrap my head around is, because I do agree, and that fight could go to $10 a Bitcoin again. And that's how nasty that fight could be. So here's what would
get me to buy Bitcoin.
It won't go to zero, but no, I'll buy all the Bitcoin at 0.01. I mean, or someone else would. I mean, or 0.02. So it's not going to zero. It could get the shit beat out of it. But I forgot what I was going to say on top of that. So
But for me, people ask me what price I'd go into Bitcoin. That's not the question for me at all. The question
I know
for
what I was going
me,
to say.
go
I'm
for it.
sorry. So, but on the other hand, maybe the final boss gets his ass kicked before Bitcoin has to do the fight. And that's a possibility as well, that everything hyperinflates, that everything runs away, real estate, stocks, bonds, and Bitcoin, but one runs faster than the other. And by the time they wake up, there's no fight left, maybe.
Well, I think there will be a point in time where I will form an opinion as to who's going to win the fight. And that's when I would be most likely to buy Bitcoin. Right now, you guys are looking ahead. And I was on a podcast once with a bunch of hodlers. And these are the dumber than brick level hodlers, in my opinion. These are the ones who don't understand market structure. They say, why would Bitcoin go down in a recession? I go,
right.
Because everything goes down in a recession. You got to wake the fuck up, right? There will be a point in time where I will conclude that either A, these evil fucks who we talked about for the last, 2.5 hours, are going to win. They're going to take you guys down to the studs and fuck you like dogs.
Yeah. Shoot us in the back of the head like a coyote.
You will be carrying the standard to battle. And I'll go, look at those fuckers. They're going to win. That is when there'll be some moment where I'll see that fork in the road. I don't need to buy it as a speculative
I think that's very
asset.
interesting. And I think that's going to happen. And I think that there's going to be a long period of time where it's going to be hard to tell when when a fool and a non-fool are arguing who is who.
Can I tell you another reason why some hodlers? That's right. Well, the other thing I remind myself is that the Bitcoin community is a very young group.
Well, Bitcoin's very young.
Right. But I also remind myself that revolutions are all fueled by youngsters. Right.
And fanatics.
Right.
Radicals.
The Revolutionary War was not fought by 50-year-olds. Right. And so you can't look at the greenness of the Bitcoin community and say, and therefore they're clueless idiots. When you are running a hedge fund, you need to have a bunch of 20-somethings.
Right.
Because you can't have battle-scarred veterans because they'll shoot down all the fucking ideas.
And their brains work quicker.
So here's another reason why Bitcoin challenges some of us. And that is, it brings a layer of complexity to life for some of us that just seems to be, I don't need any more of that. But I'll think I got it right. And then someone will fuck someone royally, right? I could have Bitcoin with Sam Bankman-Fried, the wonder kid, the guy who's on Fortune magazine, right? There's nothing that protects me from that sort of thing except for a profound understanding of Bitcoin. But then I'll read an article, they'll say, so-and-so got all these Bitcoins stolen and the FBI retrieved them. And I go, well, apparently it's not so secret. If the FBI can retrieve it, then the FBI can take it. Right? There's just all sorts of things.
If you believe that story, yeah. But I hear you.
Yeah, if you believe that story, right? But so one of the things I don't need in my old age is complexity. I don't need to be sitting here wondering if my fucking nest egg or whatever. Then they say, well, just buy a little. And I go, that's like buying a $10,000 life insurance policy. If it's going to make a difference in my life, I have to go in big enough for it to make the difference. So, for example, you said a guy's trying to get me to go into a real estate deal with him. I don't need the hassle. He says you'll make 10 million. I go, I don't need the hassle. I don't trust it to be legit because he's an emotional guy. But so that's what Bitcoin. There's a braking mechanism on Bitcoin for old guys that I think kind of falls into that category, where they go, these are old shoes. I've been wearing them for a long time. They really are. I'm comfortable walking around in them. And maybe the banks are going to fuck me. I in 2006, I spread my assets across so many financial institutions you can imagine to keep it all protected because I knew the shit was coming. And I've got a lot of physical gold. I've got a lot of physical silver. So I'm not oblivious to this horrible world that you and I see. I'm not buying Tesla. I'm not buying Nvidia. Trading at 45 times revenues. Hello, what are you, Dominion? So there's that.
I hear you. I think, I've come to the conclusion that Bitcoin for me is simplicity in a nutshell. And that it takes away all the complexity.
But it takes a huge amount of work to get there.
Yeah, it takes a huge amount of work to get there. And it's kind of like going through a blender or sort of a black hole and coming out the other side. And
Right.
It's kind of like riding a bike. You can't really describe it to someone until, or share that experience with someone until they've rode it themselves. And you can talk about it all you want and push them really fast, But it is what it is. And I think of that as a Rosetta Stone, and it's sort of something you could hold up and be a force shield. But it's not, in the short term, a solution to everything, in the sense that the whole world is not adopting this right away. So you can use it internally. You can use it as a tool. It's kind of like you can go grow a garden in your backyard. That doesn't mean you're going to change the food supply and how the industrialization of food exists around the planet right now. But you could eat better food yourself and move to a better, simpler system. But that's a whole other topic, and that we could dig into. I would love to get back together with you in a month.
Whenever.
It's already on the calendar.
I like to chat with you. If you want to put it on the internet, that's fine.
Fair enough. So we'll get into further how all roads lead to Ukraine.
So stop the recording at the end, but don't hang up.
I will. Dave, this has been incredible. I'm going to hit pause now. Thank you so much. Yo, that's a wrap on today's episode of the Bitcoin Matrix podcast with Professor David B Collum. We hope you found it informative and engaging. I'd like to take a moment to thank our listeners for tuning in and supporting us. I couldn't do it without you. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Bitcoin Matrix podcast.